Chapter 321, The Cautious Brother Long. The answer stunned Zhao Feng. She should have told him the specific answer. How could she say she did not know? Then, arrange another table, Zhao Feng said. Oh, the receptionist responded and began to check it up on the computer. At that time, Day and a few people rushed over from the side of the corridor. They had not arrived yet, but their voices had been heard. Who is it? He got out of the corridor, and when he saw it was Zhao Feng, his eyes slightly widened. He walked faster, almost like jogging, and laughed while speaking. Oh, Brother Feng, it's you, welcome. Zhao Feng nodded and said, I accompanied my boss here. Poof. Day was almost choked on the saliva. He subconsciously looked at Ah Hu, who was next to Zhao Feng. Without thinking, he bowed and said quickly, Hello, boss. Welcome, welcome. He was quite nervous when saying that. Brother Feng's boss wasn't the man who terrified Xia Shanhao last time? This. Zhao Feng didn't know what to say. He glanced at Zhan and Zhang Han, who were tittering there, and also started laughing, saying, You are wrong. Ah? Day looked up and looked at them carefully. It was so embarrassing. His face became red immediately and he felt very embarrassed. He looked at Zhang Han and wanted to bow and say hello again. Enough, let's go in. Zhang Han smiled and said in a friendly manner, Yes, yes, please. Day hurriedly made way and led them inside. Day and the others led the 4 people, including Zhang Han, to table 1. It was about 9 o'clock and there were quite a few guests. Table 1 had already been reserved, but sometimes reservations were just a joke. After the arrangement, Day rushed to call Brother Long, and his words were simple. Brother Long, Brother Feng is here. His boss also came. Table 1 had been reserved, so the reservation. Who? Brother Long was shocked and said quickly, Zhao Feng's boss. Hiss. Wait for me, I am going back now. I will arrive in 10 minutes. Bring them the best wine, serve them well. Before hanging up the phone, Day vaguely heard the voice of Brother Long talking to others. Brother Bai, there is something urgent. It can't be arranged. I'll meet you tomorrow. Do. Therefore, Zhang Han's treatment at table 1 could be seen as the highest level available. By the table, a total of 2 waiters and 6 security guards were standing there. Even the best bartender Luo King was called over. However, when she came over and found that it was Zhang Han and Zhan, she greeted nicely. Hello, brother, sister-in-law. Zhan smiled and waved her hand. Come and sit down. This. Luo King hesitated. After all, she was still working at the moment. Ahem, just sit there. You don't have to work today, Day said quickly by their side. Okay. Luo King nodded. She smiled and looked at Zhang Han and Zhan, saying, Then brother, sister-in-law, I will make you some drinks. In the end, Luo King made 5 glasses of wine and sat down next to Zhan after that. Very good. Zhan took a sip of wine, her eyes lit up slightly and she praised her. Then, those people began to drink slowly. About 10 minutes later, being 9:01, Zhang Li came in happily from the side door. Day waved his hand when he saw her. Zhang Li came over and said with curiosity, I am about to go on stage. Why did you call me, Li? He usually called her Goddess Li, but now, he didn't say that. Day was very nervous at that moment. He pointed to table 1 and said plainly, There. What? Zhang Li took a few steps forward and leaned to look at table 1. She firstly felt surprised and then walked straight to them. She sat on the sofa and curiously asked, Brother, sister-in-law, what brought you here? Where is Meng Meng? Meng Meng is playing with Fei Fei, Zhan replied. Oh, those 2 are still playing outside now? You came here especially for me, right? Zhang Li said with a smile. No, we came to have fun. Seeing you is also good, Zhang Han said casually. Humphrey, can't you say something nice? Zhang Li rolled her eyes to Zhang Han and then took a look at the time, saying, I should go on stage. You'll see the best DJ here. I'm coming. Zhang Li ran to the stage after saying that. Zhang Han smiled and shook his head. Everyone, let's welcome the best DJ of Starry Sky Bar, Lili. The last male DJ cheered. Who? A lot of cheers and screams came from the audience. Among them, only a few frequent visitors were cheering for Zhang Li, while others were cheering thanks to the atmosphere. Her appearance attracted lots of attention. Everybody. Zhang Li started her dance music after saying that. The music had a fast rhythm. Zhang Han and Xian were listening to heavy metal music while drinking wine. At table 1, they could clearly see the stage and other places. It had a great view. Zhang Han squinted his eyes slightly and looked at Zhang Li on the stage. Because it was dark, Xian and Zhang Han took their sunglasses off before coming in. Xian was wearing a cap and the brim was relatively low. Day and others did not see her face, but even if they could, it was possible that they had to think for a while before they could recognize her. Seeing Zhang Han's expression, Xian leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "What are you thinking about?" "My parents," Zhang Han replied. "Everything will be fine." Xian licked her lips after hearing that. She stretched out her left hand and held Zhang Han's right hand, expressing her love for him. "Life wasn't easy for Lili these years, but I am back now. Everything will be better in the future," Zhang Han said softly. "I believe you can definitely find uncle and aunt." "I will." In the depths of Zhang Han's eyes, there was a light. If someone could carefully observe his eyes, he would find that this light was piercing and freezing cold. There was something that he did not say, which was that all the forces related to the disappearance of his parents would be eliminated by him. Zhang Han was a little sentimental at the moment, but he adjusted his feelings very quickly. After inhaling lightly, he looked at Xian and smiled. "Looks like you can't call them uncle and aunt anymore. You should call them." "No, we." Xian looked around and then she whispered to Zhang Han's ear, "We haven't gotten married and I haven't promised to marry you yet." After Zhang Han heard the words, he moved his head and said in Xian's, "But our child can already run. You are destined to be mine. You can't run away even if you want to." After that, Zhang Han smiled. He stuck out his tongue and licked Xian's earlobe softly. Hiss. Xian instantly felt her whole body become still and then she was powerless. A blush rose to her cheeks. She moved her head away, licked her red lips, pouted her mouth and looked at Zhang Han. Then she moved her head closer to Zhang Han and said in his ear, "You're annoying. So many people are here, I'll bite you." After that, Xian opened her mouth and gently took a bite on Zhang Han's ear. "Oh?" Zhang Han raised his eyebrows and began to counterattack. Just like this, the lovey-dovey couple began to play happily. They continued with their merrymaking there, regardless of the bachelors around them. However, they didn't look at them. Zhao Feng and Ahu looked at the stage very carefully from the beginning. They stared at Zhang Li, who was moving casually. Liu Qing was a bit shy. She felt embarrassed, so she also looked at the stage. Several people, such as Day, looked at them at first. But after seeing Zhao Feng's behavior, they hurriedly stopped and began to look at the dancing floor below, thinking that they'd better not look at them. A few minutes later, the owner of Starry Star Bar, Brother Long and his two men hurriedly approached. Brother Long, Day went to greet him and said, "Mr. Zhang and his girlfriend are intimately whispering inside." "Whispering? Oh, then I'll wait for a while." Brother Long nodded and asked, "He came over to have fun. Then I am relieved." Brother Long exhaled a long breath and muttered, "With such a big shot here, I'm a little nervous." "Don't worry, Brother Long, we're on good terms with Goddess Li and her brother is our brother, right?" Day said with a smile. "What did you say?" Brother Long's eyes widened. He raised his head and patted on Day's head, saying, "Don't gossip here. If it makes Mr. Zhang misunderstand, you won't end up well." "Ha ha, I know, I'm just kidding." Day scratched his head and smiled. "Behave yourself, I'll go take a look." After saying that, Brother Long stepped to the edge of the table and looked inside. Hiss. So intimate. He moved back his head as fast as lightning. Since they were enjoying a sweet time together, He felt that he'd better not disturb them, so then, Brother Long stuck his head out every 2 minutes. When he did that for the 3rd time, Zhao Feng saw him and waved his hands. Then he stepped to the table. "Hello, Mr. Zhang, Mrs. Zhang," Brother Long said hello politely. Zhang Han nodded lightly and asked, "Are you the boss here?" "Yes, my name is Kang Long, you can call me Xiao Long," Brother Long nodded and said. "Sit down and talk." Zhang Han waved his hand casually, saying, "Xiao Li has mentioned you. She said that you take good care of her when she's working here." His actions and expressions were very natural, as if he were the host of the place. In turn, Kang Long acted as if he were a guest. He felt somewhat flattered and nodded, saying, "Well, Lilai is very easygoing and graceful. I appreciate her since she came here. Of course, I appreciate her as her boss. Later, her ability as a DJ also impressed me. She's great. She's the best DJ here. She's there. Anyway, she's very good." Seeing that Kang Long was so cautious, Xian grinned. She became more curious about Zhang Han. His reaction showed that he was obviously scared of Zhang Han, but Zhang Han had just been in Hong Kong for a month or so. Just then, when he went racing, Mr. Yi respected him, and at the venue, it was the same. So that means, how many things was he still hiding from me? Humphrey, still being mysterious, dummy. Chapter 322, Opportunity? Xian snorted. But she didn't want to ask anything, just because Zhang Han said that he was waiting for the right time to tell her that little secret. He said, "That moment would be beautiful. Then it would definitely be very beautiful." Xian involuntarily remembered the scene when he was confessing his love for her the day before. The heart-shaped lights of the building, candles, balloons, petal rain, fireworks, exquisite cakes, and the romantic love songs. And also, the kiss. Thinking about it made Xian feel so sweet and wonderful. She blinked her big bright eyes and quietly stared at Zhang Han's profile. Zhang Han smiled at Kang Long and said, "Has Xiao Li been here for a few years?" "Yes." Kang Long was sitting properly, just like a student facing his teacher. He answered seriously, "She has been here for more than 3 years." Seeing him like this, Xian couldn't help but laugh and said, "Why are you so cautious? He's not a tiger." "Oh, yes, Mom, you're right, I'll relax, Kang Long said nervously. He said he'd be relaxed, but he still felt nervous deep inside, like sitting on pins and needles. He just felt very nervous and couldn't control himself. He began to doubt if it was as the saying went, to be in the king's company was tantamount to living with a tiger. But when he was talking with Xia Shanhao, he never felt like that. Anyway, he was still the boss of the place. After taking a few deep breaths, he became much calmer. Did Xiao Li run into any trouble in the past few years? Zhang Han asked casually. Well, trouble? No. Kang Long shook his head first and then carefully thought about it, adding, when Lilai just came here, she was not familiar with the environment and she had no friends. At that time, there was another female DJ here. She was quite arrogant and always tried to push Lilai away. I thought Lilai would not stand that and leave soon. After mentioning that, Kang Long smiled and said with some emotion, I didn't expect her to be so courageous and proud. Once when she was bullied, she directly smashed a bottle of wine on the female DJ's head. She was straightforward and outgoing. After that, I began to admire her and fired that female DJ. And because Lilai is quite pretty, there is always someone chasing her, but she has never dated anyone. She never dated anyone and she even refused him. Kang Long also chased Zhang Li before, but he did not succeed. Later, he met his current wife and stopped thinking about Zhang Li. They were just ordinary friends by then. Oh, I can see that she treats you as friends. Zhang Han nodded and glanced at the watch. He said, Xiao Feng will open a bar at New Moon Bay in a while. That is especially for Xiao Li. If you are interested, you can go there. It's late, go back to your business. After saying that, he looked at Xian. He smiled lightly and said, Do you want to have some fun over there? Xian glanced at the dancing floor and nodded. Okay, let's go. And then, Xian stood up and took Zhang Han's hand to the dancing floor. Then Zhao Feng and Ah Hu decided to follow them. Before moving, Zhao Feng patted Kang Long's shoulder, who was still sitting there, saying, "Don't just sit here, here's your opportunity, think about it yourself." Oh, okay. Kang Long heard him. He looked at Zhao Feng at a loss and replied. Zhang Han and Xian walked into the dancing floor, while Zhao Feng and Ah Hu followed them closely. Liu King looked around and then went back to work. After Kang Long realized it, he hurriedly waved to Day and the others, saying, "Why are you still standing there? Go to the dancing floor and make some room for Mr. Zhang." Got it. Day nodded and walked into the dancing floor with 5 men. After they left, there was only Kang Long left at table 1. He felt a little lost. Opportunity? Kang Long sat on the sofa and felt very hot, so he poured himself a glass of wine. He gulped down the wine, and he drank it all up. He was thinking about it. That was his industry and he could call the shots there. If he went to work for other people, he wouldn't be so free and comfortable. And the key was that he still didn't know about Zhang Han's background. Was this an opportunity? Kang Long hesitated. In the end, he took out his mobile phone and called Xuanhuan. "Boss, are you busy? I want to ask you something," Kang Long asked. "Xiaolong, it's you. What do you want to know?" "I am busy. You have 1 minute," Xuanhuan replied calmly. "Well, I want to ask about Mr. Zhang, Zhao Feng's boss." "Why do you ask about him?" Mr. Zhang said that Zhao Feng wants to open a bar and he's inviting me to manage it." Puff, what? Kang Long could hear that Xuanhuan must have spit his wine out. He became a little nervous, saying, "Xiaolong, oh no, Long, no, brother Long, what did you just say?" "I said that Mr. Zhang invited me to manage that bar." Kang Long faintly felt something and said then meaningfully, "I don't know Mr. Zhang's background, I'm still running my Starry Sky bar, so I hesitated." "Boss, you've seen more of the world, so I wanted to ask you." "Well, how should I tell you, bro? Let me put it in this way, brother Long, if you can have some connection with Mr. Zhang, you should be thrilled. He is much more powerful than all the underground forces in South Island. He is a man with great influence, understand?" Hiss. As soon as he heard that, Kang Long gasped. His heart began to beat quickly and his face became red. He trembled, saying, "Is this true? You're not in that circle, so you don't know the characters at that level." "What I know is also superficial. In short, your industry of Starry Sky Bar is nothing in my eyes, let alone in Mr. Zhang's." "Okay, I know, thank you, boss." "Hey, call me brother, you don't need to be so polite with me. In the dancing floor, Zhang Han and Xian were at a corner in the front. Zhao Feng, Ah Hu, Day and the rest made a circle. The music at the moment was quite peaceful and melodious. Gradually, it transitioned to heavy metal music and the feeling was getting stronger and stronger. People could feel that it was time to dance. Finally, in the fast rhythm electric music, the power of the subwoofer was released. Zhang Li took the lead and jumped on the stage with her hands raised. Most of the people also began to dance. Wow! Xian stretched out her hands and screamed with the rhythm. Then she began to move her body and her long hair was dancing like waves, truly eye-catching. The light was sometimes dim and sometimes dazzling, in which people could see the lower part of Xian's cheeks, her small nose, her sexy red lips, her occasional smiles, her white teeth just like jade, her perfect figure, and also her slender legs. It could be said that every part of her body was extremely beautiful. When those parts were combined, that person seemed to be full of magic and she was extremely attractive. Zhang Han's expression showed that he was a little intoxicated. Gradually, Xian attracted some men who were tempted. A yellow-haired man who thought that he was the third most handsome man in the world went over. When he was near, Buzz, a person stood in front of him, with a murderous look. He took a closer look and found that it was day. Why was he standing there with his eyes wide open? The yellow-haired man was somewhat puzzled, thinking that he might be crazy. He thought for a while and eventually gave up that idea. Then he turned to find other targets, even without saying anything. In his opinion, Day might have drunk too much wine. Several other men also came near one after another. When they met Day and his men, they only saw their widened eyes, while Zhao Feng and Ahu were much nicer. They just waved their hands to the people in front of them. Under their guard, Zhang Han and Xian were not disturbed. After dancing for nearly half an hour, Xian pulled Zhang Han back to the table to rest. During that period, Kang Long was extremely enthusiastic. He patted his chest and said that he would try his best to help them with the bar. After a few swallows of cocktails, Zhang Han glanced at the time. It was 9:40, so he looked at Xian and said, "It is not early, let's go back, shall we? If we don't go back, Meng Meng will be anxious." Xian grinned. So Kang Long saw Zhang Han and several people out of the bar. "I didn't see Meng Meng for a whole day, I miss her." After getting on the car, Zhang Han stepped on the accelerator heavily and quickly went back to New Moon Bay. "If you don't see me for a day, would you miss me?" Xian, sitting in the front passenger seat, turned to stare at Zhang Han and said. Her expression showed that if his answer was no, she wouldn't pinch him. "Of course." Zhang Han drawled. When Xian's eyes were about to widen, he hurriedly said, "I would. I will miss you if I can't see you for a moment. You know what? I'm missing you day and night. No, I'm missing you every second. Humphrey, you have a glib tongue." Xian's eyes showed that she was happy to hear that, but she snorted lightly. She turned her head and sat straight, saying, "It's such a wonderful day. I haven't had fun like this in a long time. In the future, I will take you to have fun all over the world and all over the universe." Xian laughed. "Although I know that you are talking nonsense, it sounds quite impressive." They kept chatting like that and forgot the passing of time. It felt as if arriving at the restaurant only took a few minutes. When they arrived at the restaurant, Zhao Feng said goodbye and drove the Land Rover away. Zhang Han and Xian walked into the restaurant. Elder Meng and the other two people who were sitting on the first floor of the restaurant nodded and said hello, and then they left. They kept walking inside, and when they were about to reach the corner of the stairs, they heard Meng Meng's anxious voice. "How come Papa and Mama haven't come back yet? Auntie Fei, please call them quickly." Then Meng Meng burped. "Okay, I will call them," Zif said helplessly. She took out her mobile phone and before she dialed, Xian's voice came from the corner of the stairs. "Ahem, see who is back? Ah?" Meng Meng was stunned. She stuck out her small head and looked at the stairs, then her eyes lit up, saying, "Ah, Mama." She burped, "Papa, you are back." She burped again. "Hey, Meng Meng, why are you burping? How many snacks did you eat?" Xian went to Meng Meng and asked. "Ah?" She burped again. Chapter 323, Being Strong. Meng Meng widened her eyes and thought for a while. She kept burping while shaking her hands, saying, I didn't eat potato chips. I didn't eat a lot of cream." She burped again and again. Ha ha ha. Seeing how cute Meng Meng was, Zhang Han couldn't help but laugh. He sat next to Meng Meng, reaching out his hand and gently patting her chest. She burped again. With Zhang Han's patting, Meng Meng made a big burp and then stopped burping altogether. "Did you miss Daddy?" Zhang Han asked while touching Meng Meng's cute little head. "Yes." Meng Meng jumped into Zhang Han's arms and kissed his face. Zhang Han laughed happily. He held Meng Meng in front of him and kissed the cute face of his little princess. "You're only clingy with your papa, don't you kiss me?" Xian pouted her mouth and pretended to be unhappy. "I'll kiss Mama." Meng Meng went into Xian's arms and also kissed her face. "Where did you go to have fun today?" After Meng Meng kissed them, Zif asked curiously. Fei, you absolutely can't imagine what we did for fun today. Your brother-in-law, hey, he's really powerful. Speaking of that, Xian became interested and looked at Zif with her bright eyes. I can't imagine, what did you do for fun? He is powerful? Zif's mouth trembled slightly. She curled her lips while looking at both Xian and Zhang Han. What did they do for fun? They were so excited at the moment, so she didn't need to guess. They must have made love. She also said that brother-in-law was powerful. Hiss. My elder sister Yan was not innocent and pure anymore. Seeing Zif's expression, Xian's pretty face was flushed. She rolled her eyes to her and said, what are you thinking? We really went out to have some fun. Oh, yes, that is also a way to do it. Zif nodded and her expression seemed to be telling Xian that she knew that. We had outdoor fun. Xian stared at her. What, you did it outdoors? I'll give you a beating. Xian raised her hand and said angrily, all right, let me guess. Zif leaned back and said, in the open air, you went to an amusement park? Wow, amusement park. Meng Meng likes it. Meng Meng raised her small hands while speaking. No. Zif shook her head and said, you just went to the amusement park yesterday, you should have not gone there today. I think, you went shopping. Do you need to guess that? Xian almost became speechless. After shopping in the afternoon, they had sent back so many things. As long as she was not blind, she would definitely know that they had gone shopping. I can't guess anything else. Elder sister Yan, just tell me, where did you go? Zif said with curiosity. Humphrey. Xian snorted and said, we went surfing by yacht in the morning. Do you know how high the waves were? They were as high as a 6 or 7 floor building. Zhang Han is good at surfing, he even did somersaults with me in his arms. Wow, brother-in-law, you can surf? Zif said with amazement. Meng Meng also wants to go surfing, too, Papa. Meng Meng also wants to do it. Meng Meng went into Zhang Han's arms and pouted her mouth. The little girl felt something was wrong. She stayed at home to secretly eat delicious snacks, but she missed the good times of playing with them. I will take you to have fun later, Zhang Han said with a smile. Did you play anything else? Zif asked, and there was envy in her eyes. She had never had a boyfriend before, although she was quite close to 2 boys when she was younger. She didn't end up being with either of them, so she was still single at the moment. Seeing that Xian and Zhang Han were so happy together, she felt a little lost. Though she was happy for them, she didn't know where her love was. When talking about love, she couldn't help but think of a figure, who was not a Prince Charming, nor a handsome and rich man, but a little boy. He was her playmate when she was in 6th grade of elementary school. He transferred to her school. When he had first arrived, he was always bullied by others. It was she who helped him. After that, they became familiar with each other. The boy was very shy and introverted, while she was outgoing. Influenced by her, the boy gradually became extroverted and optimistic. Perhaps they liked each other, or it was only she who liked him. She remembered when he left. He kissed her cheek and said that he would definitely return to find her later. She still vaguely remembered the scene on that day. However, he did not come back. Time was passing and everything changed. Zif only occasionally remembered those beautiful memories. As for her significant other, Zif did not think about what kind of man he would grow to be like. She would not deliberately do anything and just followed the arrangement of fate. They kept talking until 10:30. Zif stood up and said, Elder sister Yan, brother-in-law, it's getting late. I'm going back. You should rest early. It's too late. How about you? Xian was about to say, how about you stay here tonight? But before she finished that, she felt that was not right. Otherwise, Zif would see her and Zhang Han sleep in the same bed. Xian was still a little shy and she couldn't stand that, so she changed her words. How about I ask Zhang Han to send you back? No need, my car is outside, I will drive it back. Zif shook her head, then she looked at Meng Meng, smiled and reached out her hand to pinch her cute little face, saying, say goodbye to Auntie Fei Fei. Auntie Fei Fei. Bye bye. Meng Meng waved her small hand obediently. Zif smiled and turned away. Zhang Han sent her out and locked the door before returning to the second floor. When he got to the second floor, he found that Xian and Meng Meng had disappeared. Zhang Han squinted his eyes. He quickly walked to the bedroom and opened the door. Wow, she changed into pajamas so fast. At that time, Xian had changed into pajamas, which were light pink and quite loose. When Zhang Han opened the door, she was helping Meng Meng change into her pajamas. Story time. Meng Meng put on her pajamas and slipped into the bed with Xian. Seeing them like that, Zhang Han took off his clothes quickly and went to bed with underwear. Looking at Xian and Meng Meng who were waiting for him, Zhang Han smiled and said, "Then I will continue." The Dwarf King and the Dark Elf King teamed up for the treasure hunt. They safely reached the beach. Then the dwarfs began to cut trees to make ships. After speaking for 10 minutes, Zhang Han found that not only had Meng Meng fallen asleep, but also Xian was sleeping soundly. Then Zhang Han put Meng Meng in the cot and went back to the big bed. What was interesting was that no more than 2 minutes after Zhang Han had laid down, Xian turned around and squeezed into Zhang Han's arms. With her arms on Zhang Han's abdomen and her slender legs wrapping one of his, she moved a bit and muttered. Then she gradually became silent. Zhang Han smiled slightly and bowed his head to kiss Xian's forehead. Then he maintained this position and gradually fell asleep. The night went by silently. At 8 o'clock the next morning, Zif rushed to the restaurant, and at that time, Zhang Han and his family were having breakfast on the second floor. Zif firstly went upstairs. After seeing them, she took some food for herself from the first floor and then went back to the second floor to eat. When she was about to eat, Zif took a look at Xian. She stopped and said, "Elder sister Yan, why are you still wearing pajamas? I just got up. I haven't dressed up yet." Xian replied, "Will there be enough time?" Zif asked, "What do you mean? We'll go to the company." "Oh, I won't go there today, nor tomorrow." Xian licked her lips and said, "Ah?" Zif was stunned, saying, "We could be like this in the past, but now, we may become a target for all." When Xian was very popular, she really had the right to speak. Every time after filming or some activities, Xian could rest for a few days as she liked. But now, time had changed. Now there were people targeting her in the company, so taking a rest like that was just giving them a reason to attack her. For the sake of the overall situation, Zif felt that they still needed to go to the company. But, target for all? Zhang Han smiled lightly and said, "It's just a small entertainment company, why do you care? If you don't want to go, then just don't. I think you'd better resign." "Ah?" Zif's mouth became a bit stiff. She felt his words were very funny, so she said, "Brother-in-law, it's not that simple. We signed the contract. We can't unilaterally break the contract. If we break the contract, we will pay liquidated damages of 300 million. Just 300 million. Later I will ask Xiao Feng." Zhang Han said casually. Before he had finished his words, Xian interrupted him with a smile. "All right, I know you have the money, but we just can't break the contract like this. Even if I leave Royal Entertainment Company in the future, I must make some achievements first." Speaking of that, there was a kind of firmness reflected through Xian's beautiful eyes, but she still said gently, "Let's rest for 2 more days, and then we will make the decision according to the situation." "Oh," Zif responded and felt a little confused. She lowered her head and ate egg fried rice. Then she quickly looked up at Zhang Han and said with doubt, "No, brother-in-law, how much money do you have?" "Roughly more than 1 billion. Poof! A few grains of rice came out of Zuf's nostrils. She hurriedly wiped them with tissues. She coughed for a while before she calmed down. Looking at Zhang Han, she said with admiration, "Oh my, you're so rich. Be my sugar daddy." "Ah?" Meng Meng, who was having the noodle soup, raised her small head and looked at Zif in confusion, saying, "Auntie Fei, you are wrong. He is my papa, my daddy. He is not your daddy. You can't steal my daddy." "Ha ha ha, Auntie Fei, if I will not steal your daddy, eat your food, Zif laughed and said. She stopped speaking from then on. She always felt so insecure before. But now she could finally rest assured. Having a person to rely on made her feel at ease. The contract that she was worried about before was nothing at all at this time. Didn't you always say that we were not popular anymore? Didn't those leaders always give us a hard time? Damn it, we could just curse you loudly, throw the 300 million in your face, and then leave. Thinking about this, Zif got goosebumps. Such a scene would be so exciting and help in venting their anger. At the same time, she also understood why Xian was so relaxed, because she finally had a man to rely on, in addition to the nourishment of love. Humph, of course she wanted to rest for a few more days. However, she did not know that the trump card that Xian prepared was not to let Zhang Han spend 300 million to break the contract. Zif was visualizing things while eating. Suddenly her cell phone rang and she had to stop thinking. She took a look at it and then answered the phone. It was Maki on the phone. She said, Zif, when you arrive at the company, come directly to my office. I have something to say to you. Humphrey. Zif was still immersed in her own imagination. She snorted and said, the company? We won't go there, not today, neither will we go tomorrow. What are you talking about? You won't come to the company? What do you want to do? What do I want? I want to throw the 300 million in. Ahem. No. After hearing Xian's light cough, Zif quickly stopped speaking and laughed awkwardly. Just then she had the courage and almost said that. She wanted to tell Maki that they had money, they could just break the contract if they wished. They wouldn't be threatened by the contract anymore. They couldn't be suppressed anymore. What the hell are you talking about? Why won't you come to the company today? Maki questioned her. Zif was thinking about what she should say. At that time, Xian put down the chopsticks and stretched out her hand to Zif. Give it to me. Oh. Zif obediently handed the phone over. Hello, elder system. Xian took the phone and said, Xian, I have already told you about it. These days, you have to come to the company on time. You also know what I mean. This morning, Director Fu was discharged from the hospital and will come to the company in a while. I think you should visit him. No, Xian directly refused her. Maki's voice became much louder. You are not a newcomer in this circle. Do you still need me to teach you this? He brought it upon himself. Why should I go visit him? Xian answered calmly. You will only make your situation worse and worse. I don't care. So you are not going to follow my arrangements? Maki gradually became angry. Whatever you think, it's fine. Hearing that Xian was so arrogant, Maki was irritated. She knew that if she went on, their relationship would get worse. Xian's refusal made her really angry. She was the director. She disliked those employees who didn't obey her orders. She was annoyed, but she was still quite confused. Why did Xian dare refuse her so bluntly? Where did her courage come from? She didn't understand why she'd be like that. She was obviously like a fish on the chopping board, but she was still so proud and acted so arrogantly. However, the current situation did not allow them to have a bad relationship, so Maki suppressed the dissatisfaction in her heart and her tone became gentle. Xian, you're making it hard for me. Nothing is hard. Fu Shan is just a director, he can't control everything here, Xian answered calmly. Her meaning was very clear. Fu Shan was just a director and he had been the one in the wrong. Why should she visit him? At the same time, she was also expressing that Wu Chengdong, whom Fu Shan was relying on, was the CEO, but the board of directors still held the greatest power in the company. She also said it as a means to target Maki. I know you are good to me and I will keep it in mind. But if you are double-dealing, I am sorry, don't forget you are only a director. As for Maki's attitude, Xian also had some doubts. She faintly felt that she and Li Cheng had always been targeting her, but she was not sure. Sometimes such enemies in secret were the most difficult to deal with, but there would be a way out for everything. Xian was not afraid of anything at the moment. The worst-case scenario was nothing more than spending 300 million to nullify the contract. Since the worst situation could be dealt with, what else was she afraid of? In the face of Xian, who was rarely as strong-willed as that, Maki felt completely at a loss. What happened? What was wrong with her? Did she have a supporter or a trump card? After 5 seconds lost in thought, Maki took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down, saying, Xian, I hope you know that I'm also doing this for your own good. If you want to rest, then just rest. I'll take care of things in the company. I'll contact you if there is something. Oh right, don't turn off your mobile phone. Alright, that's all. I believe everything will be fine soon. I know, thank you, Elder System. Maki replied before hanging up. Here. Xian handed the phone back to Zif, who was stunned there. Then she glanced at Zhang Han, who was smiling beside them, and a smile also appeared on her lips. She said gently, Why are you smiling? Ha ha ha. Zhang Han shook his head and laughed. I found that the more I know you, the more I love you. Just then Zhang Han didn't say anything else, just watching the strong-willed Xian silently. It was rare to see her like that, but he liked it. Being strong when it was needed in work, being gentle and shy in front of her lover, Zhang Han loved her more and more. He knew that Xian was not just a vase that looked good. She had her own attitude, her own ideas and thoughts. Sometimes she was persistent, and sometimes she was timid and cute. Everything about her was attracting Zhang Han, just like a popular saying, beauty laid in the lover's eyes. Xian, who was both pretty and capable, definitely could win the heart of a man very easily. Zhang Han felt very lucky to have met Xian. At the same time, Xian also felt very happy to have Zhang Han in her life. Maybe that was the love they were looking forward to. Hearing Zhang Han's words, Xian's pretty face was a little flushed. She rolled her beautiful eyes to him and said gently, Dummy. Oh my. Zif suddenly yelled, Stop, stop. Looks like I'm a poor single dog in front of you. Ah? At that time, Meng Meng raised her little head and muttered in confusion, Auntie Fei Fi, you are not a dog. No, Meng Meng, you are still young, you don't understand. Your dad and mom love each other so deeply and they are so sweet every day. Every person would be like a poor dog in front of them. Oh no, life is so hard. Zif sighed and told jokes. All right, just eat your food. Xian smiled and rolled her eyes. Eat, eat. Zif lowered her head and began to eat. After breakfast, Zhang Han took the tableware back to the first floor and washed up. Xian took Meng Meng to the bedroom to get dressed and Zif was lying on the sofa lazily. When she saw Zhang Han coming back, she sat up and said, brother-in-law, come over here. What's wrong? Zhang Han walked over. Sit. Zif patted the sofa next to her. After Zhang Han sat down, she said curiously, brother-in-law, how did you get such money? It was earned by Zhao Feng. By him? So brother-in-law, is that your money? Zif wondered. He is my disciple. I told him to earn this money. Zhang Han thought about it and gave a simple explanation. Oh my, great, your disciple is wonderful. Zif gave Zhang Han a thumbs up and said, I will call him up and talk with him for a while. I want to ask how he earned so much money. He is not here. Zhang Han found she was quite funny. Where did he go? To buy cars. Cars? Don't you have a lot of cars? Zif asked in confusion. So many Mercedes-Benzes were still not enough? This time he went to buy sports cars. When he's back, you can drive any of them as you like, Zhang Han replied casually. Wow, brother-in-law, I find you're more and more handsome. Zif yelled. Zhang Han smiled and shook his head. He also treated Zif as his own sister, just as the saying went, love me, love my dog. She and Xian had been friends for many years and they were like sisters. Naturally she also had a place in Zhang Han's heart. During their conversation, Xian and Meng Meng were getting dressed. It was in a cowboy style. Xian was wearing light blue tight jeans of the Lelabobo brand. There were some angular patterns in the front, on the left pocket at the back, There was a rabbit shape. The two light pink ears were very cute. For the upper part, it was a white short-sleeved t-shirt, with a red heart-shaped pattern in the front. She was also wearing a light blue denim jacket and white sneakers. And Meng Meng was wearing exactly the same as Xian. Xian bought those clothes on purpose. It could also be called a family outfit. Only one person was still not ready, so she looked at Zhang Han and said, "You also go get changed, just like us." While speaking, Xian pointed at the clothes on her body. Zhang Han nodded and walked into the secondary bedroom to change clothes. Although he slept in the master bedroom, his clothes were all put in the secondary bedroom, because the wardrobe in the master bedroom almost couldn't hold Xian's and Meng Meng's clothes. The wardrobe in the secondary bedroom for Zhang Han was also half full, which was all thanks to Xian. It seemed that after a while, his wardrobe would also be full. Apart from that, the furnishings in the secondary bedroom were also neat. The daily necessities such as sheets and quilts would be put into the washing machine by Xian from time to time, just when it was needed for them to be hung out. She would call Zhang Han. The old often told young unmarried men that women were needed in the family. It had the same meaning. When doing the housework, women usually did it better than men. Fei, your bags have been used for a long time. I told you to choose some yesterday, but you didn't. Now go in and pick one. Xian looked at Zif and said, "I'll go then." Zif smiled and nodded. She ran to the secondary bedroom and stayed choosing for a long time. Finally she picked a brown LV bag. After taking it out, she happily put the old bag's items into the new one. "Oh my, this bag costs more than 400,000. It's so beautiful, I suddenly feel very extravagant." Zif laughed from ear to ear. Xian laughed. "Look at you, just a bag satisfies you." Xian teased her. "Oh number. You know what, my brother-in-law said, I can drive any of his sports cars later. I can finally update my things." Zif wagged her head and said. Hearing that, Xian smiled and did not say anything. Chapter 324, The Impatient Li Cheng. If it were like in the past, Zif would not be as happy as that. The reason was that she saw Xian had reached her happiness. There were many things that Xian did not speak out, but she did know that. Soon, Zhang Han walked out. He was also wearing light blue jeans, white sneakers, a white short-sleeved t-shirt with a red heart pattern and a denim jacket. Usually when a man wore such clothing, it would look very ugly, but it was very different on Zhang Han. Zif found it very strange at first, but after thinking about it, she understood that it was because her brother-in-law could really handle that kind of clothes. Finally, all wore the family outfit. When they were standing together, others would feel that they loved each other very much. A handsome man, a beautiful lady and a cute child. They were pleasant to the eye. "Where are we going to for fun?" Zif stood up and asked. "We'll be going to." Zhang Han narrowed his eyes and looked at Meng Meng. He drawled and finally said a few words under the bright eyes of Meng Meng. "The amusement park." "Ah?" Meng Meng's eyes suddenly brightened and she said excitedly, "The amusement park? Great, let's go to the amusement park. Let's go." Zhang Han smiled and held Meng Meng in his arms. Xian took the cap and sunglasses on the tea table. After putting them on, they went downstairs. At the time, Xiong, who was sitting on the first floor, stood up and greeted him. "Boss, are you going out? Do you want me to arrange a few people for you?" "No need." Zhang Han shook his head slightly. "Okay, then I'll take care of the restaurant," Xiong replied. Zhang Han held Meng Meng and went out with Xian and Zuf. Seeing their outfit, the diners in the restaurant couldn't help but praise them. "Family outfit, they look so lovely. Wow, they look great. Hey, look at their bags, that is LV. Worth more than 400,000. The Hermes held by the boss's wife also costs more than 500,000. They are so rich. While people were discussing, Zhang Han and the others got on the little panda car. When starting the car, Zhang Han looked at Meng Meng from the rear view mirror and smiled. We're going to the amusement park today. There will be many children there. Wow! Meng Meng pouted her small mouth with expectation. That time, their destination was Hong Kong's Playhouse. It was located at the Mega Box shopping mall, covering an area of more than 10,000 square meters. It was the largest indoor amusement park with seascapes for children in Hong Kong. The ticket price sometimes fluctuated, but it was around 100 yuan, with a good cost performance. It was very popular. When Zhang Han and his family arrived at the place, there were many people coming and going. There were many children and more adults. So many people. Meng Meng looked around in Zhang Han's arms curiously. Finally, her eyes were fixed on an area in front of them. She pouted her small mouth and said, "I want to play that." Okay. Zhang Han, holding Meng Meng with his left arm and Xian with his right hand, headed to the area on the front left. That area was for racing, with many little cars for children. There were a lot of children driving inside, screaming and cheering. When Meng Meng entered, she attracted a lot of attention. Some adults looked at Meng Meng carefully for a while and praised in their hearts, she was so beautiful and cute. They were a bit curious, what kind of parents could give birth to such a beautiful baby? They looked back. When they saw Zhang Han and Xian, many parents couldn't help but curl their lips. That was completely genetic. Even jealousy could be sensed in their words. Some women looked at their husbands, to put a hand on their backs, smiling and asking, "Who are you looking at? She's such a beauty, huh? What? Ahem, I'm not looking at anyone." Everybody in the world yearned for beauty, just like when at school. The most beautiful girl would always attract people's attention. Many boys would have a crush on her. Even when they were having classes, boys would still look at her from time to time. It was the same for the most handsome boy. Many girls would like him secretly and look at him from time to time. That was the charm of beauty. Meng Meng played very happily in that area, and afterwards, the family went to the next place. There was a world maze, a mini theater, the entrance of time and space waiting room, a magic snack store, the Lilliput garden, romantic princess palace and so on. The place was attractive not only for children, but also for adults. Meng Meng had a lot of fun. Because the little girl was so beautiful and cute, she attracted a lot of children. Even two little boys of 5 or 6 years old began to fight each other in order to use a toy while playing with Meng Meng. Their parents rushed to stop them and reconciled with each other. They gently criticized their kids respectively. If they were hot-tempered parents, they might have also joined the fight, making it in the headlines of that day. That was just a little episode. The place was big enough, so Zhang Han planned to stay the whole day. But, at noon, those diners still couldn't eat at the restaurant. When they saw the big words "closed at noon" on the signboard in front of the door, they were all very disappointed. What was going on recently? Why did the boss always have to rest? Oh no, without egg fried rice, life was so hard. Since the opening of the restaurant to the present, egg fried rice had become a must for many people eating there every day. People who were keen on the noodle soup were relatively less. It was better for VIP members. There were many kinds of delicious food. Eating there was definitely an incomparable experience. Zhang Han and the others were having their fun until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Meng Meng played very happily and her sweat continuously dripped down from her forehead. After getting on the car, Zhang Han started it and drove back to the restaurant. "Meng Meng, are you happy today?" Xian asked with a slight smile. "I'm very happy." Meng Meng was wearing a happy expression. "Then give me a kiss." Xian pouted her red lips. Mew, mew, mew. Meng Meng kissed several times on Xian's lips. Zhang Han glanced at them from the rear-view mirror. He smiled and shook his head, saying, "I also want to kiss you. What do you want to eat for dinner?" Speaking of dinner, both the little girl and the two adults opened their mouths. Roast duck, hot pot, meat. As soon as they said that, Xian and Zuf laughed at the same time. "Then we will eat roast duck for dinner today and have hot pot tomorrow," Zhang thought for a while and said, "Okay." Zhang Han nodded. He took out the phone and dialed Zhao Feng's number. "Xiao Feng, are you back? Well then, go to the mountain to take a few ducks and get prepared." After a few words, he hung up the phone. At that time, Zhang blinked her big eyes and thought for a while. Suddenly her eyes lit up. She looked at Zif, saying, "Hey, Fei Fei. What do you think about Zhao Feng? You should have a boyfriend now, you're not so young. Come on, I don't have any thoughts about him." Zif hurriedly shook her head and said, "I will go with the flow. I'll get married sooner or later. If you don't hurry up, you'll be too old." Zhang licked her lips and said, "I am only 26, I'm not old. There are many women who get married in their 30s, there's no rush." Zif snorted. "If you think so, then just let nature take its course. I just think that Zhao Feng is quite good," Zhang said with a slight smile. "Forget about him, he has someone in his heart." Zhang Han found that very funny. He smiled and shook his head. "He likes someone? Who is it?" Zhang was stunned. "He likes Liang Menkai," Zhang Han replied. When he was cooking on the first floor, he often saw the Zhao Feng's expressions when he was talking with Liang Menkai. He didn't notice that at first, but as time passed, he knew what was going on between them. Liang Menkai. Zhang began to think, She is the young lady who always said to Papa that she loves him? Meng pouted her mouth and said, "Oh, it is her?" Zhang narrowed her big eyes. She looked at Zhang Han and drawled. Zhang Han's mouth trembled slightly, feeling that he had fallen into a trap set by himself. He should not have mentioned that. She just likes to say that. Zhang Han said that unconfidently. From Liang Menkai's attitude and looks in her eyes, he knew what that woman was thinking about. If there was no Meng and Zhang after rebirth, then Zhang Han may have had some interest in her. But at the moment, Zhang was the only one in Zhang Han's heart. There was no one else. Zhang Han could only stay away from the good feelings of others. Humphrey. Seeing him like that, Zhang snorted and said, "Time will tell. Let's see your performance in the future, right? The birth date written on your ID card is December 12th, so you are Sagittarius. I learned something about constellations. They often say Sagittarius men are fickle in love. This is." Zhang Han shook his head helplessly. Seeing Zhang Han's expression, Zhang grinned and said, "I will keep a close eye on you anyway. If you dare to flirt with other women, I will take Meng away. I won't give you the opportunity." Zhang Han laughed. The implication was that he only loved her. Zhang blinked her beautiful big eyes for a few times and was just wanting to say something. Then Zif said unhappily, "Stop, no more PDA, okay? I am still sitting here. I am also sitting here." Although Meng did not understand what that meant, she still said it to attract their attention. The cute expression of the little girl made Zhang Han and Zhang laugh again and again. They arrived at the restaurant happily. Zhang went to the second floor and Zhang Han started making dinner on the first floor. It was a big dinner, with roast duck as the meat dish, a staple food of egg fried rice and noodle soup, in addition to shredded cucumber with sauce and stir-fried potato chips. It was a good combination of vegetables and meat, which made the VIP members very satisfied and ordinary diners very tempted. After all, the smell of the roast ducks was too strong. After dinner, Zhao Feng cleaned up the mess. Zhang Han and others rested on the second floor. Meng sat on the sofa lazily to watch cartoons. As usual, Zif didn't leave until 10 o'clock in the evening. Zhang Han and Zhang accompanied Meng to play with her toys for a while. They went back to their bedroom at 10:30. Zhang Han continued to tell the story. In less than 10 minutes, the little girl fell asleep. Zhang Han carefully carried Meng back to the cot. Then, he could not wait to get into bed. At that time, Zhang was also a little sleepy. Her eyes were closed, but her eyelashes were shaking. Pretending? Zhang Han grinned and quickly stretched out his right hand in the bed. He rubbed her and pinched her. Humphrey, so annoying. Zhang blushed. She felt her whole body was powerless. Zhang Han laughed. Zhang Han turned and pressed on Xian's body, feeling that softness. He became very hot and his body had a big reaction. Xian also felt that. She felt more timid and her body was a bit numb. That masculine power shocked her and almost made her suffocate. She felt a little dizzy. She blinked her beautiful eyes, stared at Zhang Han, and then opened her mouth to gently say, "You, I." Just when she was about to speak, her red lips were pressed by Zhang Han. With such a hot kiss, Xian already knew how to respond. Their lips were entangled, sometimes playing like two naughty kids, sometimes going forward, sometimes backward, sometimes fast, and sometimes slow. Gradually, Xian's arms were around Zhang Han's neck and she was intoxicated. Gradually, Zhang Han's hands began to get naughty. Then, Zhang Han turned around and put Xian on top of his body, letting her press against himself. Just like that, the two of them kept rolling in bed and had a long kiss. The atmosphere in the room also started to be intimate, but it was obviously not enough for a couple who were like dry wood in a blazing fire. But Xian was still on her period. It was like a river that couldn't be crossed. Bad guy. After the kiss, Xian laid on Zhang Han's body and said softly, "When you stop bleeding, I will be even worse." Zhang Han's hands kept moving and whispered, "So annoying. I won't let you take advantage of me so soon. I almost can't control it anymore. What should I do?" Xian saw Zhang Han's expression and sensed some difference. She imaged the scene at that time and her pretty face became more flushed. "How about?" Zhang Han squinted his eyes. He reached out his fingers and touched the red lips of Xian a few times. The meaning was very clear, but Xian was ignorant and said, "What does this mean?" The two of them hugged each other and didn't sleep until 12 o'clock. Finally, Zhang Han looked at the innocent Xian and didn't say anything. That couldn't be rushed. There was still a long way to go. Is it necessary to get some pornographic films for Xian to watch? Zhang Han was pondering. The night went by silently. The next day, Xian still chose to rest. However, that morning, Meiki did not call. After they finished their breakfast, Zhang Han went to Mount New Moon in the morning and went back to the restaurant at noon to have lunch. He did not plan to go out in the afternoon. He was ready to stay with his lover at the restaurant. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in Meiki's office at the Royal Entertainment Company, Xian hasn't come to the company for 3 days? Li Cheng slightly frowned. Yes, Meiki smiled bitterly and said, "She was very determined. I couldn't force her, so I agreed to let her rest. I can understand that she didn't come for 1 day, but she hasn't come for 3 days and she is so determined. What's wrong with her?" Li Cheng said in confusion. "I don't know. Judging by her tone, I feel like she has no worries on her mind. Is it possible that she has found a solution?" Meiki was also somewhat puzzled. Is she planning to give up on herself? Li Cheng said with doubts. If that were the case, then the means he had prepared and the money he had spent were all for naught. Thinking of that, Li Cheng could not help but worry. Seeing Li Cheng's expression, Meiki shook her head and said, "No, I know her. She is the kind of person who will never give up. She had received a lot of criticism in the company. Even if she is unhappy, she will definitely make some achievements to prove herself." Then, what happened to her? Did the company put too much pressure on her? Li Cheng frowned. It is possible. She is tired and wants to rest for a few days. But it may be because of other reasons, Meiki answered. Hearing that, Li Cheng's frown deepened. After thinking for a minute, he took out a box of cigarettes of the 35 brand. He pulled out one, lit it, and walked to the window. He looked out the street, saying, "It's really a headache. I am very annoyed now." Li Cheng's words contained much impatience. If everything went on according to his plan, he would enjoy the process of conquest, but if it didn't, he would feel depressed. "Don't be annoyed." Meiki smiled bitterly and said, "She is such a beauty. Of course, it will take you a lot of effort to conquer her. The harder the process is, the better you will feel when you succeed, right?" Meiki was a clever woman. She just said what Li Cheng really wanted to hear. He. Li Cheng stopped frowning and chuckled. You are right. If that's the case, then when you call her again, say something nice. Yes, sir. At Meng Meng's recreational restaurant, Zhang Han's family, Zif, Zhang Li and Liu Qing were all on the second floor. Meng Meng was playing with her toys, sitting in the middle of Zhang Han and Xian on the sofa, while others were chatting freely. Brother, sister-in-law, don't you want to have another baby? Zhang Li asked casually. I don't. Xian licked her mouth. It was quite lucky for her to have given birth to Meng Meng, a second baby. The point wasn't whether she wanted it or not, but whether she could or not. Hearing that, Zhang Han held Xian's hand tightly and whispered in her ear, I will cure you later. A bit of heat brought by his words made Xian's ears a little itchy. She moved her head back, smiled slightly, and looked at Zhang Han gently. Even in silence, she understood everything. She was already very happy. Even if she weren't ill, there was no need to deliberately have a baby. Zhang Han also shook his head with a smile, while his eyes showed that he was thinking. In the past, Zhang Han had checked Xian's body. She was very healthy. As for the problem of infertility she mentioned, Zhang Han also knew where its location was. In Xian's abdomen, there was a small area where his spiritual force couldn't reach. That was very strange. It was just that Zhang Han was only at the qi refining stage. When he reached the foundation stage, he should be able to know what the reason was. As they spoke, Xian's cell phone rang. She picked up the phone and hung up after a few words. What did Meki say? Zif asked. She said that if we still refrain from going to work, Boss Wu will blame her. She also said that she will arrange some resources for me in a while. Xian replied, I've rested for 4 days. I will go to the company tomorrow. Resting like this, I will gain weight. It's good to gain some weight. Zhang Han smiled and said, I can't. If I'm fat, I will have to lose weight. It is painful to lose weight. As they spoke, a voice came from the stairway. Boss, madam, Ahu looked excited and said loudly, the cars are here. Why don't you come down and take a look? The sports cars are here, let's go. Zif's eyes brightened and she stood up first. Then let's go and see. Zhang Li and Liu Qing also stood up and followed her. Zhang Han held Meng Meng in his arms and also went downstairs with Xian. When they got out of the restaurant, in the parking space in front of the door, a few new super sports cars were parked there quietly. Seeing the cars, Zif gradually widened her eyes. Wow, this is cool, so beautiful. Liu Qing's eyes also lit up. You bought so many? Zhang Li was not very excited, but she knew the value of those super sports cars. The first one on the left was the black Bugatti Black Bess Legend Limited Edition. It was convertible and looked a little round. It was special. There were only 3 such cars in the world, worth 60 million. It definitely would be an eye-catching beauty on the road. The second one was also a limited edition, the Maybach Excelero, with the popular elements of the 1930s. That sports car was retro and avant-garde. There was a combination of various elements. It was black and streamlined. Everything looked so extraordinary. There was only one in the world. It would be high profile at any place. The third one was a Lamborghini Murcielago. It was black with a yellow bar and a tail wing. The lines were rigid yet sleek and the sense of the times was strong. It had the elements necessary for a modern supercar, especially the air intake design next to the engine. It would automatically rise in action, which further enhanced the sense of movement of the Murcielago. The fourth one was a Lamborghini Aventador. It was orange, with a low body, scissor doors, huge air intakes around the body, highlighting the wildness of Lamborghini. The latter 2 cars were relatively ordinary and they could be bought. But to get the Bugatti Veyron and the Maybach, the 2 limited edition rare sports cars, the person really needed to have some influence. Wow, it's so cool. Zif looked around the 4 cars. Choose one. Zhang Han smiled and said casually. His tone showed that those sports cars were just like toys and he could give them away as he liked. I. Zif was a little excited. After watching them for a while, she shook her head and said, I won't choose. I'll drive them randomly. I can drive any of them if I want to, brother-in-law. This is what you promised me. Then I will try first. Zif rushed to Zhao Feng and said, give me the key. Which one do you want? Zhao Feng asked. I want this one. Zif pointed to the Bugatti Veyron. Here. Zhao Feng looked at the 4 car keys in his hand and handed one to Zif. Ha ha ha, who wants to join me? Zif laughed and asked before getting in the car. I am going with you. Liu King raised her hand. Come on, let's go for a ride. Zif said. The two of them got in the car and it left slowly under the control of Zif. Their speed was just like snail pace in Zhang Han's eyes. Xiao Li, you also choose one, Zhang Han said to Zhang Li. Me? Zhang Li shook her head and said, I don't need it, I still like my Maserati. Wait until I don't want it. Hey, Zhang Han, why didn't you ask me to choose one? Xian stared at Zhang Han. You don't really like these things, do you? Zhang Han said with doubts. According to their contact at ordinary times, he felt that Xian was not very fond of supercars or things of the sort. Who said that? Xian pouted her small mouth. Ha ha. Zhang Han knew what to do. He laughed and immediately held Xian's waist, saying, I am all yours, let alone these cars. Wow. Zhang Li smirked after hearing the words and made strange sounds. Wow. Meng, who was in Zhang Han's arms, saw Zhang Li's strange reactions and also followed her lead. She pouted her small mouth like a goldfish and made strange sounds. Bah, what are you talking about, so annoying? Xian grinned. She patted Zhang Han's arm lightly and rolled her eyes to him. Chapter 325, Uninvited Guest. Then, shall we go for a ride? Xian looked at Zhang Han and said. Since they were out, they could just drive for a while. Let's go for a ride, let's go. Let's go. Meng cheered in a cute voice. For that little girl, no matter where they would go or what they would do, she would happily follow them. Okay. Zhang Han nodded and waved at Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng directly handed over the Maybach's key to him. Beauty, please get in the car. Zhang Han smiled and said to Xian. Xian held Meng in her arms and got in the black Maybach. The car had a noble temperament and a hidden innate wildness. You could find it extraordinary after just taking one look. There was only one in the world. That gimmick was great. Even Yi Han, who gave this car to him for free, felt that the car could be speculated up to 100 million. But in order to give himself a protection layer, he chose to give it to Zhang Han. He was smart and far-sighted. Only alive could you have the chance to spend money. He had many luxury cars, but only one life. Let's also drive a new car around, shall we? Zhang Li smiled and looked at Zhao Feng. Ah, okay. Zhao Feng nodded. You drive for me, okay? Zhang Li's eyes were slightly bright. There are still 2 cars, one for each. Zhao Feng said. All right, I want the orange one, Zhang Li said. Here. Zhao Feng handed over the car key. He got in the Lamborghini Bat himself. At that time, Zhang Han's Maybach had just left. Zhang Li started the car and followed up. Zhao Feng was behind them. It was also fun to drive a car around occasionally. Sun Donging was just like that at the moment. He was driving his own yellow McLaren, driving freely on the streets with Lu Yin. You will go back the day after tomorrow. To be honest, I wish we could play together for a few more days, Sun Donging said with a casual smile. I didn't do so many live broadcasts in the past few days. My fans are not happy. I have to go back and focus on the live broadcasts for a while. By the way, Brother Dong, if you want, you can go to my place to play. Lu Yin smiled and said, I'll definitely go there if I have the chance later. Sun Donging shook his head and said, before you came, I thought you were an open-minded and rude girl like in the live broadcast. I didn't expect you to be so gentle and quiet in reality. That is for the effect of the live broadcast, okay? Lu Yin snorted and grinned. Ha ha, right, it's fun to play with you. Stone is also very interesting, so are the two girls. Brother Dong, your live broadcast is stable now. Now the average audience number is more than 500,000. It is like this at the beginning. It is estimated that the number will be stable at more than 1 million in a period of time. You will be a big anchor. At that time, some studios will contact you and try to sign contracts with you. Some websites will also come to you. Remember to have a good talk with them about the price. Lu Yin said. Forget about the studios. I won't cooperate with the websites, either. For the time being, that little money is nothing to me. I'll wait until the time is ripe. Sun Donging was hurt deep inside, but his expression showed he didn't care at all. He seemed to say that money was just like dirt in his eyes. But what he actually thought was, damn it, it is money, more than 1 million fans. Wouldn't that be nearly 10 million? I've never had that much money. However, due to various reasons, Sun Donging would not sign any contracts for the time being, because once he did, he would be restricted. He would wait for his father Sun Ming to come back from North America and ask him for his opinion. Hey, Brother Dong, there is still something I want to ask you. Just say it. Sun Donging nodded. Well. Lu Yin hesitated, saying, it is about the beautiful little girl Meng Meng. I found that many stickers and a variety of avatars have been made with screenshots of Meng Meng's face. You used her video and a lot of people entered your fan group so quickly. So, can you also ask her to record a video for me? I'm afraid not. Sun Donging thought for a moment and shook his head. You also know that our boss is a big shot. I was lucky last time. He wouldn't let Meng Meng always record short videos like that. Sun Donging felt it was okay if he asked for it himself, because after all, their relationship was not bad. Zhang Han saved his family also because of Meng Meng. Therefore, Meng Meng's mum and also the boss had an important position in Sun Donging's heart. Last time when he made the request, he also called up all his courage. If he made the request for someone else, that would be too much. Oh, that's a pity. It was the first time that I saw such a beautiful little girl. Lu Yin chuckled and said, I think if you have a chance in the future, you should take more shots of Meng Meng. With her there, the effect would be absolutely good. Ha ha ha, she is the most beautiful little princess in the world, damn it. Sun Donging laughed and said that while waiting for the traffic lights, when he saw a supercar passing him, he widened his eyes and stopped speaking. Wow, what car is that? So cool. Lu Yin also looked that way and suddenly felt amazed. Damn, that is the limited edition of Bugatti's Black Bess Legend. I really can't believe my eyes, it's so beautiful. Sun Donging heavily patted his thigh. Limited edition of Legend? Lu Yin curled her lips, saying in a low voice, would it cost a lot of money? It costs 60 million to get one. He took a deep breath and said, Sun Donging's heartbeat was accelerating. 60 million? Oh my, so expensive. Lu Yin felt a little dizzy. The 2 million that she had earned, hey, it was nothing. Sun Donging exhaled. There are only 3 such cars in the world. It's very rare. I didn't expect to see it here today. It is definitely a big shot driving it. Sun Donging shook his head and drank some mineral water to calm himself down. He didn't know that the driver was Fei Fei. Poof, what car is that? When a black, dazzling Maybach passed, Sun Donging's heart seemed to be struck by electricity. He spit the water in his mouth on the window. He was so excited that his voice trembled. Wait, don't talk. I have seen this car on the internet. What is it? What is it? Maybach. Oh yes, Maybach, damn it. It is the Maybach Excelero. The only one Maybach Excelero in the world. Wow, it is in Hong Kong, and I saw it. It is so cool. Look at its streamlined body, so high-end. Really? There is only one in the world? Oh my, how expensive is it? Lu Yin asks in a low voice. That can't be measured by money, okay, it is simply a work of art. Sun Donging, who was extremely fond of supercars, said slowly, with his eyes narrowed and fixed on the Maybach, which was getting farther and farther away. But it should also have a price. Well, there is a price. Sun Donging sighed and said, that car was auctioned some time ago. It was taken by a person with more than 60 million, but I guess, because there is only one in the world, its price could be improved. It's so expensive. Lu Yin stuck out her tongue. She suddenly looked at the front and said, there are 2 more sports cars. Are they also limited editions? Are they together? Hey, looks like they are. Sun Donging stared at them and said, those are Lamborghinis, much cheaper than the 2 in the front, around 8 million each. The 4 cars are all new and they are also here at the same time. It seems they are all together. There must be a big shot among them. Yeah, several sports cars are so cool together, just like the scene we saw at the circuit that night, Lu Yin said with emotion. Ha, the value of these cars is greater than all the cars on Mount Red Star that day. Sun Donging shook his head again and again. Wow. There are so many rich people. There aren't that many people as rich as them. I don't know how long it will take me to get a limited edition sports car like those. As they were talking, the horn of the car behind blared. Dee. Sun Donging just realized it and quickly drove the car forward. At the same time, he asked Lu Yin, where are we going? I forgot. Seeing the confused Mr. Sun Donging, Lu Yin grinned and said, are we not just driving around? Oh, right, just driving around. Sun Donging shook his head and said, would you like to find a place to play for a while? Hearing Sun Donging's words, Lu Yin's face was slightly flushed. The 2 of them went out alone, to find a place. To play for a while? What did he want to do? Looked like it was a bit ambiguous, wasn't it? This is too early, Lu Yin said a little embarrassedly. We've just known each other for a few days. Ah? Sun Donging was stunned. Then he realized it and couldn't stop laughing. Finally he said, I meant, how about we go to play golf? But I don't know how to play it. I'll teach you. Sun Donging liked to flirt with girls, but he liked the kind of girls who were willing to be with him and directly leave him after they slept. As for Lu Yin, the girl was good-looking and had big breasts. Sun Donging was confident that he could take her down, but they were both doing live broadcasts and were familiar with each other. If something happened later, it would be troublesome, so Sun Donging had no other thoughts about her. He thought about it and planned to go play golf. At the other side, the 4 sports cars together were eye-catching and the pedestrians on the road couldn't help but look at them. The car team drove to the new moon curve and it seemed that they were going to drive around it. After Zif saw the cars behind her had caught up, she smiled and slowed down. She let the Maybach take the lead and then followed it. At the last traffic lights before they went to New Moon Curve, Zif pressed the button to open the roof. Zoom. The roof of the Bugatti Veyron changed. Like a robot, the roof was transformed. It raised and then lowered down. That made the passers-by on both sides of the road look over. Even the people in the vehicles which were waiting for the traffic lights on the road were also paying attention. In one of the buses, many people repeatedly made exclamations. What a cool car. So cool. Look, there are still 2 beautiful women inside. They must come from a rich family. I can't believe it. There was a more interesting young man. He was driving an Audi A4L next to the Bugatti Veyron driven by Zif. He looked in admiration at the movements of the roof. When he saw the person inside, he was surprised. Oh no, a female driver. I'll stay away from her. If my car is scratched, I would be miserable. During the people's exclamations, the red light turned into green. The only one Maybach in the world took the lead and turned to the New Moon Curve. Would you like to sit for a while at the Union Garden? Xian said. Since she moved into the restaurant, she had not returned to Union Garden for a few days. Okay, Zhang Han replied casually. Then the 4 cars drove all the way to Union Garden. During the period, Xian called Wang and told her that they'd arrive in 20 minutes. After they arrived at Union Garden and went upstairs, Wang had already brewed the tea. Seeing that Zhang Han was holding Meng in his arm and also holding Xian's hand, Wang was somewhat surprised and emotional. She remembered that at the beginning, Zhang Han and Xian looked quite strange, but now it seemed that their relationship developed very fast. They were a family after all. In Wang's opinion, they were more like a couple who had a problem before and then separated. Zhang Han regretted it and then returned to Xian. After a period of time, Xian forgave him, but what happened before? He cheated on her or something else? It seemed that she was thinking too much. Wang found it was very funny. She could even write a love drama according to what she had imagined. Everyone was sitting in the living room on the first floor, chatting while drinking tea. After about 10 minutes, Wang seemed hesitant, but she finally said, "Miss, I want to resign." "Resign?" Xian was stunned. She didn't know the reason, so she asked, "Why do you want to resign so suddenly?" "Because, miss, you have a happy family now. It must be better to have Mr. Zhang's care. Now you have moved away, I have nothing to do here." Wang thought for a while and said, she had come to look after Meng, cook for them and clean the house. She was a qualified nanny. But at the moment, it seemed that the mansion had become hers. Living there alone and still getting a high salary made her a little embarrassed. "This is not a big deal, you can just look after the house," Xian said with a chuckle. "Well, I don't think it's good, I'm too free," Wang replied. "If it is for this reason, then you don't need to think too much. Fate brought you to Xian, and you are quite principled. Just take care of the house. If you are bored, you can leave then," Zhang Han said casually. He also remembered that when he was going to take Meng away, Wang kept stopping him and Meng had even called her old witch. "Look, the head of our family said so. Wang, just stay here with peace of mind. Tell me if you really don't want to work here later." Xian grinned. "Yes, thank you, miss, thank you, Mr. Zhang." Wang felt over the moon after that. She had a feeling of being respected. She had been working in the industry for a few years and had met a variety of employers. Some employers were really hard to deal with. If she didn't do something good, she would get scolded. But Xian and Zhang Han were both easygoing. She felt that she really had good luck. At the same time, she also had another feeling. Zhang Han was really like the head of a family at the moment. His expressions were still like before, seeming that he did not care about anything. But she could feel the difference by looking at the other people's expressions, especially from Xian. She was just like an obedient and gentle wife at the moment. A powerful woman would eventually be conquered by a more powerful man. After they chatted for a while, Meng held a big bear higher than her and wanted to go to Mount New Moon. She said that it was a toy for Dai and Little Hai. So all of them left Union Garden and first headed to Mount New Moon. Meng held the big bear and played for a while with Dai and the others. Zhang Han asked Zhao Feng to prepare the ingredients of the hot pot and left at 5:30 in the afternoon. Back at the restaurant, Zhao Feng began to deal with the food. He would need to prepare the hot pot for VIP members, too. At the same time, Zhao Feng took out his mobile phone, opened WeChat, and sent a message. "Menkai, when will you come? We'll have hot pot today." At 6 o'clock, Liang Menkai and 2 other people rushed over. At that time, there were already a lot of diners lining up at the front of the restaurant, but many of them stood in front of the parking space, discussing about the 4 supercars. Many people also took photos with them. 4 high-profile sports cars were parked in front of that small restaurant. The contrast was even more shocking. Oh, the Maybach Limited Edition? A Bugatti Veyron Limited Edition? Liang Menkai and the other 2 people got off the car and looked at them in surprise. This kind of cars is very expensive. Zhao Du curled his lips and took the lead into the restaurant. When he sat down, he rushed to look at Zhao Feng next to him and asked, "Whose are the sports cars outside?" As soon as he said that, Liang Mengkai and Yu Qingqing also looked at Zhao Feng. The boss. Wow, so cool, the boss is that rich? Zhao Du exclaimed. Of course, the money is just a number for the boss. Zhao Feng raised his chin slightly and said. After he finished, he looked at Liang Mengkai and said with a chuckle, Mengkai, after the meal, shall we go for a ride in one of those? Wow, are you asking her out? Yu Qingqing grinned and teased him. No, Liang Mengkai directly refused. Zhao Feng laughed bitterly in his heart. To win Liang Mengkai's heart was so difficult. How come she likes the boss, as his apprentice? Although I couldn't beat Dai, I am also very good. I don't understand. When they had arrived, it was just fine. Liang Mengkai had seen many luxury cars. Yu Qingqing and Zhao Du had little interest and were not particularly fond of cars. When other people came, they all had different expressions. Wang Qing and Wu Liying just looked at each other and laughed, saying nothing. Pearson walked around the cars for several times. Linds was also a little shocked, feeling that the restaurant was getting classier. The most shocked one, of course, was Sun Dongying, who was very fond of sports cars. Damn it, what is this? Aren't these the cars I just saw? After Sun Dongying parked the car, he went to the other side and then his eyes widened. Seems you're right. Lu Yin said unconfidently. Whoosh. Once she finished, Sun Dongying had left. He ran quickly towards them, looking at the two limited edition sports cars and exclaiming. So cool, boss, you're awesome. So damn beautiful. He exclaimed for a while. After he saw that the people around him were all watching him, he stopped being like that and coughed. Ahem, so pretty, After that, he took Lu Yin into the restaurant quickly, and then rushed to find Zhao Feng to determine the source of the cars. He learned that those were really Zhang Han's cars and felt excited. They're not your cars, what are you excited about? Liang Mengkai did not hesitate to mock him. Just looking at them makes me feel excited, ha ha. Sun Dongying scratched his head and laughed. When he looked down, he found that there was an electric pot on the table. He was stunned and said, we'll have hot pot for dinner? Zhao Feng nodded. Wow, cool. Sun Dongying's stomach started growling. At dinner time, Zhang Han made egg fried rice and noodle soup. Then he went upstairs. Zhao Feng, Ahu and Xuyong prepared all kinds of ingredients. When they were eating, Ahu and Xuyong sat down at Sun Dongying's table. They had a delicious dinner. At 8 o'clock, Zhang Li and Liu King returned to the Starry Sky Bar. At 10:30, Zhang Han coaxed the baby into sleeping. Unfortunately, Xian had also fallen asleep. That kind of mood was not there. Meanwhile, Zhang Han was also waiting for the day when Xian stopped bleeding. Then he would let her see what a real man was like. It would be soon, just 3 or 4 days. Zhang Han thought about it and gradually fell asleep. The next day, Xian got up a little earlier. She and Zif went to the company after having breakfast. At 9 o'clock, the restaurant restored its calm. Zhang Han was accompanying Meng Meng, watching cartoons on the first floor. Just then, a black BMW was parked in front of the restaurant. The driver quickly got off and opened the door of the rear seat. There was a man wearing a tunic suit. He was in his 40s and had a serious temperament. There was a beard on his chin and the look in his eyes was quite aggressive. He glanced at the plaque of the restaurant very lightly and walked over. Judging by his gesture, it seemed that an uninvited guest had come to the restaurant. Chapter 326, Choices. As he got to the restaurant and glanced at the distinctive signboard, he snorted. His eyes were suffused with disdain, and he assumed an air of superiority at this time. It seemed that the people in the restaurant were not worth that he came here in person. However, after entering the restaurant, this middle-aged man's face changed and he put on a calm look. He took a look at the inside of the restaurant and finally fixed his eyes on Zhang Han, who was sitting on the sofa. Are you the boss of this restaurant? Can you talk to me? The man asked politely. Zhang Han turned his head and stared at him for a while. and then he turned back. The man slightly raised his eyebrows and became unhappy. But when he saw Zhang Han picking up a glass of juice from the tea table and handing it over to a little girl, he stopped frowning and then sat at the table for normal eaters near the door. "Should I call you Mr. Zhang, Boss Zhang, or Master Zhang?" After seeing Zhang Han sitting down, the man asked casually, "Are you from the National Security Agency?" Zhang Han was not shocked but asked flatly. Listening to his tone, the man secretly snorted. He is indeed a green and inexperienced person after all. In his opinion, Zhang Han still kept calm though he had guessed that he was from the National Security Agency. He was somewhat ostentatiously unconscious, or short-sighted. However, if he had seen the pictures about the cultivation world in Zhang Han's mind, even a few, he would have completely been frightened. "So, I will call you Master Zhang." The man chuckled. In general, visitors would call him Mr. Zhang, guests would call him Boss Zhang, while martial artists would call him Master Zhang. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Jiang Zongyao, Deacon of the National Security Agency of Hong Kong." The man took on a complacent expression. At this moment, he did want to see Zhang Han's face becoming more and more dignified after introducing himself. However, Zhang Han gave a bland response. Then, he did not say anything. Did he just say "oh"? Jiang Zongyao felt like that he had eaten half of a worm after taking a bite of an apple. "Don't you feel honored?" Jiang Zongyao could not help but ask. "What should I feel honored to?" Zhang Han replied casually. "A deacon of the National Security Agency comes to visit you." Jiang Zongyao stared at Zhang Han. "Deacon? I have never heard of it." Zhang Han's face did not change. After hearing what he said, Jiang Zongyao was a little shocked and scolded him secretly. "Fu K, bumpkin." It turned out that he did not know what the deacon was. "I'll tell you the details." Jiang Zongyao sat up straight and said, "There are various teams in the National Security Agency, besides deacons, ministers, guardians as well as managers, who are all affiliated with the management, are superior to every man, team leaders and captains. Only a profound stage master can become a deacon. Are you masters classed in National Security Agency?" Zhang Han asked. For the martial arts world, he heard of Chi Strength Master. Now, after hearing Jiang Zongyao's words, he knew that masters were also graded. Just like Chi refining stage, it was divided into the early stage, the middle stage and the late stage. However, Chi Strength Masters were at the lowest level. "Do you think that Chi Strength Masters are all the same?" Jiang Zongyao shook his head and said, "Chi Strength Master can be classified into 3 levels, that is, Profound Stage Master, Earth Stage Master and Heaven Stage Master. In addition, the Master's strength will be enhanced dramatically if they promote to an upper stage. As for me, I just broke through to be an Earth Stage Master, and will become a deacon of the National Security Agency in a period of time. Don't you feel honored as a deacon come to visit you?" "Oh." Zhang Han gave him a plain response again. Jiang Zongyao was somewhat confused because he did not make out what he meant and whether he felt honored. But Zhang Han's disdain look made Jiang Zongyao feel a bit uncomfortable. He coughed slightly and said, "Before I came here, I've already watched the videos about you and had a rough idea of your strength. Judging by the videos, you probably are at the inward strength stage or the peak strength stage. Since I heard that you could use flowers and leaves as weapons, I think you are really a master. However, you just promoted to be a profound stage master. Can you sit still if I know your unknown background?" Jiang Zongyao thought. But Zhang Han did not react as he expected but said coldly, "Tell me your intention." Jiang Zongyao frowned slightly. He's good at keeping his temper. After thinking for a while, Jiang Zongyao chuckled, shook his head repeatedly, and then said, "I don't know why you are so confident, but you have to know that becoming Chi Strength Master is just the beginning in the martial arts world. Moreover, are you already 27 or 28 years old? In fact, a lot of people became Chi Strength Masters at your age." Oh? Zhang Han did not intend to drive him away directly, but asked casually, "Are there plenty of warriors in this world?" As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Zongyao completely confirmed that the man in front of him was absolutely a martial artist who knew little about the martial arts world. He, therefore, adopted a condescending manner and said, "There exist a large number of martial artists, and the martial arts world I know is just the tip of the iceberg. However, compared to the global population, martial artists are still very rare. You must know that it is really tough for the martial artists to make progress since there is neither blessed spot nor heavenly treasures in this world. Talents can be found everywhere in their martial arts world, and there are some outstanding figures in several sects or forces. However, they rarely show up. You may not have heard of them. In addition, what is more enchanting is that in the past 50 years, only Emperor King made great progress constantly with a few resources. Emperor King's martial arts talent was awakened at the age of 12, and he became a chi strength master when he was 15 years old. All his data are very enchanting in history. Of course, nobody knew him at the beginning. Emperor King popped up 10 years ago. When he was 15 years old, he became a chi strength master. Having a good grasp of metaphysics and ancient martial arts, he's a person who makes a showy display of his abilities. 8 years ago, Emperor King promoted to be an Earth Stage Master, vanquishing countless young talents. 7 years ago, Emperor King became a Heaven Stage Master within only 1 year, which was indeed a miracle. A majority of forces and young disciples of sects were not worthy to touch the hem of him, so that they felt really desperate. Emperor King became well known from then on, for he was too horrible. 5 years ago, Emperor King reached the peak of Heaven Stage in 2 years and started the closed-door meditation, trying to be an admirable Grand Master. He was only at the age of 20. The people like him were qualified to be called the proud son of heaven. Jiang Zongyao spoke of him with awe. After sighing with emotions, he looked at Zhang Han and said with a chuckle, "So, it doesn't mean anything that you are a chi strength master at this age." He actually dares to lord it over others since he's just a chi strength master. Zhang Han shook his head, feeling a little funny. What is ignorance? This is ignorance. It has nothing to do with fortune or whether you have aptitude if you lord it over others. In fact, such a name is too ostentatious. He is likely to be beaten. Zhang Han remembered that he had seen a history book about Cultivation World and it told that there existed a super sect, named Emperor Sect. In this sect, there were a variety of titles, such as King, Emperor, Holy, Monarch, which were all really domineering. Moreover, there were a dozen of strong men at the past tribulation stage. However, in the end, after a real immortal struck them, and the whole sect was destroyed and none survived. The huge handprints still remained on that continent, and even Zhang Han had seen it before. He knew that the man was definitely a true immortal. Since then, nobody dared to flaunt his capacity in the cultivation world. Later, a small number of people called those who succeeded in passing tribulation and were expected to become immortals. Han Yang Immortal was also titled in this way. The reason why others call him immortal was out of respect and blessing. But at this time, after hearing Zhang Han's words, Jiang Zongyao smiled and said, "The name of Emperor King was given by the people who were defeated by him. Besides, he was completely qualified for this title by right of his strength. A martial artist actually can reach the peak of Heaven Stage at the age of 20. You won't understand what it means. Have you finished? You can go if you finished speaking." After chatting with him for a moment, Zhang Han lost his interest and waved to him. "Oh, interesting, ha, ha, ha." Jiang Zongyao's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at Zhang Han with a chuckle. He stopped laughing as his eyes were filled with disdain, then he looked at Zhang Han and said coldly, "The purpose of my visit is to give you a chance for developing. I'm not interested in it. What are you talking about?" Jiang Zongyao's face sank and he said in an angry tone, "Stripling, pay attention to your tone when you talk to me. Really? Zhang Han was slightly stunned, but after glancing at Meng, who was sitting on the sofa watching TV, he shook his head gently without saying anything. Ha! Jiang Zongyao sneered and said, "Stripling, I came here for your troubles. Last time, you made troubles on New Moon Street. Get to the point." Zhang Han interrupted. Jiang Zongyao became angry as his face sank, and then he said, "Okay, I will say it frankly. I will give you two choices for what happened last time. First, surrender. If you should turn all the money you have earned over and work for the National Security Agency for 2 years, we'll stop pursuing this matter. Second, if you choose not to surrender, fight with me on Mount Yunding 7 days later." At this point, Jiang Zongyao was surrounded by chilled breath. He stared at Zhang Han and said slowly, "You only have these two choices. I will give you 3 days to consider, young man. I don't need to think about it. Let's see on Mount Yunding after 7 days." Zhang Han sized him up, then he got up and walked to the sofa. During this period, Jiang Zongyao heard what he said. "What?" Jiang Zongyao immediately stood up and tightly held his fists as he looked at Zhang Han's back. He wanted to hit him, but finally gave up. He gave Zhang Han a fierce stare. After snorting, he left. As for Zhang Han, he had wanted to beat such a supercilious man, but he let him go as Meng was next to him. In the martial arts world, the masters were divided into profound stage masters, earth stage masters and heaven stage masters, while chi refining stage could be classed into the early stage, the middle stage and the late stage. There must be some similarities between masters and chi refining stage because either of them could be divided into 3 stages. However, the most orthodox cultivators did have extraordinary abilities to use and master the spiritual force in meridians. Zhang Han did not know that which stage he would reach if his strength was converted into a master's. Besides, he was not interested in knowing it. Because Zhang Han already had an idea. He took out his mobile phone and dialed Zhao Feng's number. "Xiaofeng, tell Instructor Liu that I promise his demands and ask him to send the batch of treasures." Zhang Han originally had a little interest in the spirit treasures. Just like a person who was used to admire diamonds, if he suddenly played glass marbles, no matter how the shape of the glass marble were, they were still made of glass. However, a few good-looking ones would arouse his interest. There was no denying that among those spirit treasures, blue serene bamboo and soft golden stone were of great quality. Blue serene bamboo could shorten the yielding time of Yuan King trees, while soft golden stone could enhance Dai's strength. In addition, some other spirit treasures were likely to be valuable. However, just judging from pictures, Zhang Han was not certain. Now that someone wanted to fight against him, he did not mind using these spirit treasure to refine flexible dendon pills for Dai to improve its strength. Jiang Zongyao, who was so arrogant, should feel Dai's power since he wanted to go to Mount Yunding. After finishing the phone call, Zhang Han sat next to the little princess, holding her in his arms and watching interesting cartoons with her. On the other side, after getting up, Zif drove the Bugatti Veyron to the restaurant. Zhang Han asked Zhao Feng to drive 4 cars to the company last night. As for Zif, she drove her Mercedes-Benz S600 over and drove the Bugatti Veyron back. Anyway, she had access to all these sports cars. She liked this Bugatti Veyron, which was relatively mellow, very much. Therefore, she planned to drive it for a period of time. After eating breakfast with Xian, the two of them got into the limited edition sports car under customers' gazes and left. This sports car also attracted a lot of people's attention on the way. Many people, who had a good command of cars, figured out the origin of this car, while those who did not know any details about it also sighed for the appearance of this car. What was more interesting was that when they were about to arrive at Royal Entertainment Company in the North District, before a traffic light, "Hey, look, this is a limited edition Bugatti's Black Bess Legend, costing more than 60 million yuan. In a red Porsche Panamera," the agent, who was driving the car, said to Xuanhuan in the back seat. "Bugatti Veyron? Xuanhuan turned her head. When she saw the shape of the car, she could not help but put on an envious look, and then said, "What a beautiful car. I don't know which child is in that car." "No matter which child, you won't have an opportunity. You are Child Li's lover now. It is not good for your development if you displease Child Li." The agent shook his head. "Don't mention Li Cheng, or I will get angry." Xuanhuan snorted and said, "Only when he has a requirement will he find me, otherwise he will think of the bit Xian. Ha, ha, I think that he will definitely kick me off if he gets Xian. This is also a problem, I told you last time that we should beware of her, or it will be all in vain." The agent reminded, "I know, and I have already held back a trick. If he goes too far, I will wreck his reputation," Xuanhuan said in anger. Li Cheng asked her to wear the same costume as Xian's and have the same haircut as Xian did when they got to room last time. Furthermore, he called Xian's name when they did the wild thing, which not only disgusted Xuanhuan, but also annoyed her, but she did not dare to express her anger but just spoke ill of him behind his back. "You'd better not make things worse. Once he is utterly discredited, we will lead a tough time." The agent sighed and said, "But nothing bad happened, though he has an affair with several artists in our company. I think your relationship will also end up with nothing definite. Maybe." Xuanhuan looked at the Bugatti Veyron. Then she grinned and said, "I think that Li Cheng is really funny. He's so lascivious though he has impotence problems." At this moment, the light changed to green, and the Bugatti Veyron moved forward at a high speed under their gazes. The two cars beside it did not move at first, because they found out that a lady was driving it. In fact, there were few women drivers who owned strong trick cycling, so they decided to give way for her. "Hey, the Bugatti is also on West Road, maybe it heads for our company." The agent smiled as he drove the car. "It won't be so coincident. But perhaps a certain big shot comes to our company to discuss cooperation in film and television." Xuanhuan shook her head and said, "I do hope to know some real big shots. You'll definitely have opportunities in the future," the agent replied. So, the two of them headed for their company while chatting with each other, and the Bugatti in front of them gradually drowned in cars. It was nearly 9 o'clock when they arrived at the company's parking lot. After getting out of the car, they hurried to the building. They, however, did not notice that the second car next to their parking spot was the Bugatti Veyron, which attracted their attention before. As Xuanhuan went to the elevator in the lobby on the first floor and saw the two people, she suddenly put on an arrogant look, strutting the catwalk and going forward. "Hey, superstar Xian, you eventually come to the company." Xuanhuan approached Xian and said with sarcasm. Xian glanced at her coldly, and then ignored her. As for Zif, she took off her sunglasses and glared at Xuanhuan, and then she said, "It's none of your business." "Well, don't be so fierce, I just welcome you," Xuanhuan said both deliberately and hypocritically. "You don't need to do that. Don't talk to us since we are not acquainted with you," Zif said angrily. "We don't want to talk to you, Xuanhuan's agent snorted. Then she looked at Xuanhuan and said, "Xuanhuan's last album sells well, and the superiors of the company all know that. Therefore, they're going to create a second album for Xuanhuan. This time, all the songwriters belonging to our company will write songs for Xuanhuan in person." Ding! At this point, the elevator opened and the four of them walked in. Xuanhuan smiled and said, "Don't say that. Someone will feel sad because she did poorly in her album." "That's right." The agent nodded and said, "Those who only sell few albums should reflect on themselves. Someone still looks like a teenage girl. She's indeed an actress, but who will watch her here? She isn't popular after all, and can't do anything about the album sales," Xuanhuan said. She felt that she and her agent were well balanced today. As Zif heard their sneer, her eyes widened. When she was about to speak, Xian gently patted her on the back to stop her. Ding! The elevator stopped. Xian took the lead in walking forward. After going out of the elevator, Xian turned round all of a sudden and looked at Zhu in the elevator. She smiled and said coldly, "Do you know what you look like in my eyes?" "What?" Zhu asked as she stared at Xian. "An insane clown," Xian said slowly. After finishing her words, she shook her head slightly, then she turned around and left. Chapter 327, A Mail from Hanyang. "You." Zhu's face turned red. Although Xian neither swore nor talked dirty, Zhu was extremely annoyed when she heard an insane clown. In fact, she felt even more angry than usual when she quarreled with Zif. "Why did you, gonna, find fault with me? Now that your album sells really poorly, why are you so calm? Because of your beautiful appearance?" Zhu had been jealous of Xian at the beginning, but now she hated her. She felt really angry in the face of Xian's counterattack. "Well, we'd better not bother to argue with her." The agent snorted and said, "She is going to be left out in the cold by the company, and won't threaten you in a short time. She will know that she can't get any resources from our company at the meeting in the afternoon. Ha, ha, I'll see if she can maintain her calm expression by then." Zhu gritted her teeth and left with her agent. Xian and Zif walked to the office inside. "Hey, elder sister Yan, here you are. Zif, I envy you so much that you can rest for a few days. On the way to the office, a few people greeted them. Some of them greeted normally, some greeted hypocritically, while others whispered with each other after saying hello to them. Much more people greeted them than usual, but most of them had something in common. That was the gloat in their eyes. Catching sight of their gazes, Zif muttered in confusion. However, when they arrived at the office, they made out what was going on. Their office's door was open, and 3 or 4 artists and agents were busy moving the documents, tables as well as chairs. "What are you doing?" Zif's eyes widened, and then she asked while looking at the people in front of her. "Hey, elder sister Xian, elder sister Zif, here you are." Among them, a ponytailed woman with a thick makeup deliberately said in surprise, "Why, what do you mean?" Zif questioned once again. "Oh, Bai pretended to be embarrassed, but the complacency in her eyes betrayed her. She said with a hypocritical expression, "I'm so sorry, this office belongs to me from now on, elder sister Zif, your office is on the leftmost." As soon as she finished speaking, everyone around whispered with each other. Even a small number of people who got along well with Zhu burst into laughter. "What are you talking about?" Zif spoke louder and her face sank. "Ouch, elder sister Zif, don't worry, since this is elder system's order, you can ask her if you have any questions," Bai said as she shook her head. "I really need to ask." Zif said in anger. What does she mean? Change their office? The innermost office was so small, and there was no window inside, which depressed people. What is she going to do? She's too ruthless if she just wants to suppress us. At this time, Zif was so annoyed that she could not help wait but rushed to Makey's office to question her. It would be better if they reached a consensus. If not, DM it. At the worst, I can ask my brother-in-law for a 300 million yuan bank card and throw it ruthlessly on your face, and then tell her that I won't work here. However, when Zif was about to move, Xian opened her mouth. She took on a cold expression as usual and nobody could saw any signs of her emotions. "Let's go." Then Xian walked to the innermost small office. "Elder sister Yan." Zif clenched her teeth and gave an angry stare at Bai, who was tittering, and then she left in anger. The innermost office was messy, in which they placed only 2 sets of desks and chairs, 2 old computers. Several documents were scattered on the desk. Obviously, the previous workers threw them randomly. Elder sister Yan. Zif could not help saying, "Let's go, we don't need to be bullied here." Xian glanced around and took a deep breath, and then she said, "If she doesn't have an explanation that satisfies me, I'll leave Royal Entertainment Company." But she actually was unreconciled to leave in this way. She would be like a loser, who exited menially. This was absolutely not the result Xian expected. The company did not leave any good impression on Xian now. At the beginning, although there were some interest disputes in the company, the overall working atmosphere was sound and some artists made friends with all their hearts. But now, everyone attached great importance to profits. Xian found that not only the people in this company changed, but also some unknown men were planning to suppress her secretly. No matter who faced this situation, he would not stand it. As for Zif, hearing what Xian said, she calmed down and was a little excited. She said while holding her mobile phone, "I'll call my brother-in-law. Let's go to see Maki first." Xian shook her head slightly and said, and then she walked out. Zif then put her phone in her pocket and walked to Maki's office, following Xian. The two of them attracted a lot of people's attention on the way. The news that their office was changed had already spread. At this moment, Xuanhuan, Baiwei and some other artists, who looked on, got together. The instant they saw Xian, they gloated and made fun of her loudly. As Xian heard their words, her eyes became colder. Zif gave them the middle finger direct and said with the mouth moving only, "Stupid. Hey, she's really ill-mannered. That's right. Such people should be thrown out of the company. She's indeed insane." Faintly heard what they said, Zif cursed in her mind, "I'm bound to scold you to my heart's content when I leave here." Xian knocked at the door when she arrived at Maki's office. "Coming." They walked in and sat on the sofa opposite the desk. Xian looked at Maki without any emotion and only said, "Directum." She did not ask her any question, but her words surprised Maki. She used to call her elder sister, but now she called her directum. Even a fool could make out the true meaning of her words. Is she going to fight back? Maki was puzzled. She did know Xian's temper because she had worked with her for several years. Once she became stronger, it demonstrated that she made up her mind to do something. However, Maki was not aware of her thought now. In the meantime, Maki, who had planned to praise her after taking her down, gave up criticizing her. She smiled directly and said, "Xian, do you come here for your office? Since you've already known our purpose, why did you ask the question?" Zif raised her eyebrows. Maki glanced at her. She did not care about her attitude, but said with a smile, "I did not tell you in advance as I want to surprise you, Xian. I plan to change your office to the big office next to mine, but it is under renovation now. I'll decorate it well, and you can move in about a week later. I have told you one of the reasons why I change your office, and another reason is that I want to set an example to the superiors. After all, the trouble hasn't been solved. However, you don't need to worry, for I've discussed with Child Li. Over a period of time, we'll offer a great resource to you, and Child Li will also contact some of his friends to create a good album for you. The last show has a gratifying effect, so you are bound to succeed if you release a nice album." From a one-sided point of view, what she said would indeed seduce Xian. But the world was changing, and the verbal promises sometimes just made no sense. In fact, neither the office nor those songs would belong to Xian, for according to Li Cheng's temperament, he would not give her any resources until he got something from her. Generally speaking, Maki's smile and her friendly attitude, coupled with her words, would definitely appease the person who was in a bad mood. But Xian was not an ordinary person. She stared at Maki and said slowly, "Directum, do you want to help me sincerely?" Maki was a little surprised, deep in thought, trying to figure out her real intention. While thinking about it, she replied, "Why do you ask me this question? Of course, I really want to help you. I remember that we talked once when we signed the contract at the beginning and that you also promised me something, but you broke them later. You even did not provide me with a fine song for my album. After that, you asked me to be on 2 shows. However, the mentors of the first program have a grudge against me, while some people in the second program also intended to make difficulties for me. I heard that they immediately changed their attitude after picking up a phone. Actually, I've never met them before, so." At this moment, Xian stared at Meiki and said slowly, "Who the hell has a spite against me?" Xian knew it very well, though she never complained about her unfair treatment at ordinary times. If she had been just a naive beautiful girl, she would have lost everything since she had been in the entertainment circle for several years before. Xian thought about and doubted what happened. Does Meiki hold a grudge against me because I left with telling her? Xian thought it was almost impossible, but I haven't been in contact with many people recently. Linji, Jiadong, Wu Chengdong, and Li Cheng. As Linji failed to pursue her and wanted to keep her in Shangjing, he probably got involved in this matter, or Wu Chengdong, as his friend, placed obstacles in the way. It is Meiki who takes responsibility for me. Besides, she got along well with Li Cheng. Since I refused Li Cheng a few times, is he hostile to me? Moreover, I heard that Xuanhuan and Li Cheng are on good terms. Is it because of Xuanhuan? Xian took all the factors into consideration, but she was not sure. In fact, she was suspicious of other people. But Xian did not care about anything now and asked Meiki directly. Meiki looked at Xian's expression and listened to her words. At this point, she was somewhat at a loss. She blinked her eyes quickly several times and sat up straight. Then she smiled with a bad grace and said, "How do you think so? Perhaps you are too sensitive, Xian. No one intends to crack down on you. Our company truly doesn't have abundant resources. Please wait for summer days, and I'll definitely provide you with great resources." But this is what happened. Xian chuckled. She stood up and said flatly as she walked to the door, "We'd better talk about it later." "Wait." Meiki stopped her hastily. After Xian stopped walking, she said, "Stay a bit longer. I'll ask others to clean reception room number 1, which will be used as your office temporarily. You can move into the office next to mine after it is decorated." "Thank you, Director." Xian nodded slightly. "Come here." Meiki stood up and walked over, and then she said, "Let's sit down and have a talk." Meiki, Xian and Zuf started chatting. This time, she acted really friendly, as if she was chatting with her best friends. Meanwhile, out of Meiki's office, the crowd became noisy again. Some people saw Xian and Zuf entering the director's office, and wanted to make out what would happen. But they only saw some staff going to the innermost small office, moving the office supplies to reception room number 1, then decorating the reception room into an office. "What are you doing?" Xuanhuan walked forward and asked with curiosity. "This is temporarily Mrs.'s office," the staff responded. At this time, many people were a little startled and began to discuss with each other. "It's so extravagant to transform the reception room into an office. It's well decorated and shaped. In addition, it is really big. Director actually allows Xian to possess this room." "What do you mean?" Bai curled her lips and felt unhappy, though her office was just changed. As for Xuanhuan, she was even more uncomfortable. She planned to laugh at her, but she had not expected that her new office was much better than before. How angry she was. In Meiki's office, Meiki told Xian and Zif that she had difficulties and promised that she would give Xian resources later. After learning that the new office was cleaned up, she asked Xian and Zuf to go to work. Xian and Zuf headed for their office. Although there were still plenty of people talking with each other, some of them exclaimed with admiration this time. They doubted whether Xian would be popular again. But Xuanhuan just sneered. The resources of the company were almost allocated. How could Xian become popular without resources? After Xian and Zif left, Meiki took out her mobile phone and dialed Li Cheng's number. "Child Li, there's something wrong." "What's wrong?" "I replaced Bai's office with Xian's and drove Xian to a smaller office today. However, she came to me and took a tough stance. She also suspected that someone deliberately tried to take her down. I think that she might doubt you, Child Li." After that, I offered a better office to her and talked to her for a while to reassure her, Meiki said truthfully. "Oh, she took a tough stance? You can take her down in other ways. I think that she doesn't dare to breach the contract, for 300 million yuan is too much for her. I have something to do and you can handle this matter by yourself. Leave her in the cold for several days. By then, she will realize that it is too difficult to become popular without resources. Okay. The new office was much larger, and the decorations in it were similar to the ones in Makey's office. There was a desk in the main position, a small desk nearby, a set of table and chairs for drinking tea in front of the window, a few sofas and tea tables in front of the desk and 7 potted plants. Moreover, the office was well decorated. They, therefore, were satisfied with the office. Alas! Zif sat on the sofa, then she sighed and said, "It is useless to get a better office." Makey also said that the resources had been allocated recently. "We are still far from success since we have to wait. We can try to collect some songs ourselves." After thinking for a moment, Xian said in a stubborn tone, "According to the company's resources, it will get a few classic songs every 1 or 2 months. Now that we don't have access to them, we should find another way. The last time I was so anxious that pushed you to release the album though there were no fine songs in it. This time, we should make sufficient preparations. We can adapt the famous songs or find other ways. After polishing the songs over and over again, I believe that we can release an album of high quality." Well, Zif stood up and clenched her fists, and then she said, "Let's bring about an upswing. Let the people who laughed at and look down on us respect us sincerely." But, after finishing speaking, Zif felt discouraged again. She gave a wry smile and said, "What if the album sells poorly again? Besides, it will be so difficult for us to choose the boutique songs from the mailbox. You were confident just now, why do you lose heart?" Xian compressed her mouth and said firmly, "Where there's a will, there's a way. I believe we can make it." "That's right, fighting." Zif gritted her teeth and said, "I will see if there are any fine songs sent before. I'll listen to music for a while." Xian nodded. The two of them come to their desks respectively and turned on their computers. Zif began to check the mails about music from the mailbox, but she had no confidence in this kind of songs. As for Xian, she wore a high-quality headset and began to listen to songs. But as the first song just began, Xian clearly heard Zif's penetrating voice all of a sudden. "Oh my god, oh my god, who's this? Elder sister Yan, elder sister Yan, my gosh, hurry up, hurry up. Elder sister Yan, come over quickly, there's something wrong. Oh my god, am I blind? Is this true? Elder sister Yan, come on." Although the sound of the songs was quite loud, she still heard Zhang's shouts. She took off her headset and looked at Zif in confusion. Seeing that Zif pointed at the screen as her eyes widened and was so excited that she could not help shaking, she realized that something had happened. "What's this?" Xian walked over curiously. When she leaned over and glanced at the name of the email on the screen, "I'm Han Yang, this is the 10 songs I give to beauties. Here's a little token of my affection." When she caught sight of Han Yang, Xian's eyes gradually widened, and she gradually opened her mouth. Her heart almost skipped a beat, then it gave a great leap, like a storm. Han Yang. Xian could not believe in what she saw. She was short of songs. At this point, a legendary songwriter, who was really popular nowadays, actually sent her 10 songs. Moreover, it was acknowledged that only Xqian got 3 songs from him, while others almost just gained 1 song. Only those who were lucky enough got 2. However, he sent her 10 songs. Wow, Han Yang, it turned out to be Han Yang, ha, 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 we're so fortunate, elder sister Yan, we're bound to succeed, you're to be famous. Zif was so excited that her voice trembled, but the next moment, Xian blinked her big eyes and came to her sense, throwing cold water on Zif's thought. I haven't heard that Han Yang sent 10 songs to others, and he will reply to the message on Weibo before sending songs. Is this true? Is this really a mail from Han Yang? Xian said in doubt. What? Zif froze. She looked at her screen and stared at Han Yang, and then she said with difficulty, will it be a fan's prank? Wow, it can be. I feel a little sad now. We'll identify the authenticity once we listen to them. Xian pulled her bottom lip between her teeth and said slowly, Chapter 328, 10 Fine Songs. Right, let's listen to them first. There are really 10 folders inside. Zif nodded repeatedly. Play them with the computer on my desk, Xian said. There was a nicely configured sound on her desk, while Zif's computer was only equipped with a headset. Okay. Xian went back to sit down, while Zif moved her chair over, sitting next to Xian and logging into the mailbox with the computer. She clicked into the first folder with 3 files named Accompaniment, Tuning Piano Piece and Lyrics. Xian opened the file named Lyrics to have a look, seeing a variety of detailed notes above the lyrics, the symbols of natural voice and falsetto, as well as timbre. Xian could not help blinking her eyes. Perhaps it is Han Yang who sent the mail. With such detailed explanations and some professional terms, the mail did not seem to be a fan's joke. So, are these really songs from Han Yang? Xian felt a little nervous and excited at the thought of it, when she was about to play the accompaniment. Wait. Zif interrupted in a hurry. What's wrong? Xian asked curiously. I'm going to lock the door. Zif got up and ran to the door. She, like a thief, opened the door and looked around. Then she slammed the door, locked it, and ran back to sit down. You don't have to be so serious, Xian said, feeling somewhat funny. Ha, I'm too excited. Let's listen to the song now. Zif said with a smile. Well, I just read the lyrics, it's really great. Xian kind of believed that it was a song written by Han Yang. When she put on the accompaniment, she was a little nervous and excited. As the accompaniment began to play, a melodious music rang out from the high-quality sound, which made Xian's and Zif's eyes become brighter and brighter. The beginning of the accompaniment, the soothing part, the part with great enthusiasm and the stable part were all well organized and methodical. After finishing listening to the song, Zif froze, her voice trembled as she went on. It is likely to be a song written by Han Yang, it gives me the creeps. Elder sister Yan, would you like to have a try? Fine. Xian itched to have a try as her eyes lit up. When she was about to play the accompaniment, her hand suddenly stopped. She clicked the file named Tuning Piano Piece next to it and said at the same time, listen to this first. Compared with the accompaniment, the piano piece only contained simple sound of piano, but she could approximately hear the timbre. After finishing listening, Xian had a general idea of this song. I feel excited. I'm very excited. This is absolutely a fine song. Listen to it over and over again. Xian's eyes brightened. She had not felt so excited for a long time. In addition to the quality of the song, she thought that the lyrics and its artistic conception was in accordance with her current condition. This song seemed to be tailored for her. It did ignite Xian's passion for music, though she kept calm for a long time. After listening to it several times, Zif could not help but say, great, it sounds so nice. Elder sister Yan, do you want to sing this song? Yes. Xian nodded. As the accompaniment was played again, Xian sang along. Her voice was so clear and melodic, and she injected her emotions into her voice from the very beginning. I have a dream, just like the rainbow. Can I have your smile with the tears in my eyes? There is a love passing through the crowd and picking up the lost dust. Whispering to me, approaching me, you hold me tight, Since the sound of the first short verse was very soft, it demanded a specific singer's voice, but obviously, Xian's voice was like a stroke of genius, vividly displaying the first verse. At this time, Zhang Han's figure rushed into Xian's mind. His breathing was getting closer and closer, and he held her in his arms tightly. She clearly remembered the feelings when Zhang Han hugged her. Xian had fully integrated herself into the song at this point, and her engaging voice was filled with emotions. I open my eyes, seeing you beside. I don't care whether our love will last forever. When I close my eyes, you turn up again, and take me away from this lonely sky. The wrong or right is not at sight. We now unite. As this verse began, the tempo of the accompaniment started to be accelerated. Then, the most passionate part appeared. Every time when I wake up, I embrace my love. You keep waiting and never left. I'm reluctant to part with you, and I don't need to hover about, for you are my most beautiful expectation. Xian was still intoxicated though she finished this verse. What she experienced with Zhang Han was like a movie, flashing across her mind constantly. I open my eyes, seeing you beside. I don't care whether our love will last forever. When I close my eyes, you turn up again. Every time when I wake up, I embrace my love. You keep waiting and never left. I'm reluctant to part with you, and I don't need to hover about, for you are my most beautiful expectation. The accompaniment ended. Xian did not open her eyes since she was still lost in thought, and could not help smiling. This was a very sweet smile, which was because of happiness. After a long time, Xian slowly opened her eyes. On seeing Zif, she was suddenly dumbfounded and said, "What are you doing, Fei Fei? Why are you crying?" I'm really happy, ha, ha, ha." Zif blinked her eyes and quickly wiped away the tears in her eyes, and then she choked with sobs as she smiled. "I do like this song, please tell me the name of this song." Xian looked at the computer. As soon as she put her hand on the mouse, Zif answered, "The most beautiful expectation." Xian was somewhat surprised. The name of this song coincided with her idea. The most beautiful expectation. Xian was absent-minded, unblinking her beautiful big eyes, and murmured. Simultaneously, she also had an idea. The most beautiful expectation. Zhang Han, you are my most beautiful expectation. I will sing this song to you specially on a big stage. Xian was still like a girl. Once she fell in love with Zhang Han, her mind was filled with him. At this moment, since she got this song, she started fantasizing that she would sing this song at a concert with tens of thousands of audiences one day. Before she sang, she had to say something. What will I say? I'll give this song to my husband. No, number. He hasn't proposed to me and we haven't gotten married yet. He is not my husband now. What else can I say? Just tell the audience that I give this song to my favorite one. This is acceptable. Ha, ha. He will be definitely surprised at that time and will hug me at the backstage after the concert. Judging by his overbearing temperament, he is likely to kiss me. However, there are so many people at the backstage. How shameful we will be if we kiss in front of so many people. I'll be so embarrassed. At this point, Xian just sat at the desk, already feeling distracted. Zif thought that Xian was a bit strange at the beginning, so she stared at her. Why her eyes suddenly narrow? Is she smiling? She probably is giggling. Hey, how does elder sister's face turn red? She looks a little shy. What happened? Is she thinking of Zhang Han? Wow! The person who falls in love with another acts really differently than usual. Zif stared at her for more than half a minute. Seeing that Xian was totally lost in thought, she finally could not help but cough and said, Elder Sister Yan, hello, wake up. Are you thinking of brother-in-law? No, I don't want him to kiss me. Xian said subconsciously. Ah? Zif suddenly froze, and then burst out laughing. Ouch! Xian rolled her beautiful eyes as her face turned red. She snorted and said, Stop laughing, let's check other songs. Ha, 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 well, I'll stop. Let's check other songs. Judging from the quality of this song, it is definitely written by Han Yang. Wow, 10 songs. Nobody got so many songs before. My god, it's so cool. Zif stopped laughing and said with great excitement, Humphrey. Xian snorted, feeling very delighted. She rolled her eyes at Zif, then she looked at the computer and opened the second folder. More than half an hour later, this song about fairy tales is very interesting. It seems that Han Yang wrote it for kids. Zif repeatedly shook her head and sighed with emotions. Han Yang is full of wit. What a talented man. He's so terrible that he can write songs of various styles. My God, it's a miracle, elder sister Yan, just have a try. Well, okay. Xian played the accompaniment again and sang, following the rhythm. I heard that Snow White ran away, and Little Red is afraid of the wolf. I heard that Mad Hatter likes Alice, and the ugly duck will become a swan. I heard that Peter Pan never grows up, Jack can do magic and has a harp. They just worked in passion like time was not even passing. Unconsciously, the morning slipped away quickly and it was 12 o'clock. Xian tried to sing 4 songs, each of which was of great quality. These songs gave the two of them the creeps frequently. Oh, elder sister Yan, it's 12 o'clock, let's take a break and drink some water to moisten your throat. Zif handed her a bottle of water. Well. Xian took it and had a few swallows. Elder sister Yan, we will definitely succeed this time. I have already imagined that you return to the peak again soon. No, you will surpass your former achievements, win the top award. Ha, ha, ha. Zif shook her head and said, looking forward to what would happen in the future. Yes, it's the second time that he has helped me. He's really my lucky star. Xian casually looked through the mails and her face changed slightly as she saw the special sending time. Wait, Fei-Fi, look. What? Zif turned her head in puzzlement. Look at the time. Xian gradually calmed down. Time. The mail sending time, at 21:21 and 21 seconds. Love you, love you, love you, PFTT, ahem, ahem. Is it impossible, elder sister Yan? Is Han Yang your crazy fan? Is he expressing his love for you? Zif's eyes widened, and she was a little shocked. Is Han Yang confessing his love for Xian? Xian froze, pulling her bottom lip between her teeth, and her expression was a bit upset. In addition to the songs they had listened to, others were all undoubtedly fine songs. But he is expressing his love. Should I accept the gifts and sing them in public? Just as she accepts the flowers from a man with great joy. What if Zhang Han see this? What will he think? Will he feel upset? Will he be disappointed? Will he become sad? Xian could not help imagining Zhang Han's sad eyes at the thought of it. At this moment, her heart gave a great leap. She did feel distressed. She loved Zhang Han. Every time when she thought that Zhang Han would feel lost and sad, she would feel distressed. No, I can't accept these songs. Even if these 10 songs can rewrite my current dilemma. Xian's eyes were brimming with helplessness and sadness, but she did not hesitate. After only 2 seconds, she glanced at Zif with a firm look and said, I can't accept these songs. Ah, you want to give up, why? Zif was suddenly astonished, and then she said in an anxious tone, elder sister Yan, no, we need these 10 songs. Han Yang may express his love, but we can accept these songs. No. Xian shook her head again, directly replied the mail and typed a few words. Hello, Han Yang, I'm Xian, thank you very much for the 10 songs you sent to me, and I know what you mean as I see the sending time, so I can't accept them, sorry. It seems that I will miss these fine songs. She typed these words without any hesitation and clicked to send it. Then she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, leaning against the chair and sighing. What a pity, but she did not regret refusing his help. Zif looked at Xian, who was really stubborn, shook her head helplessly, and then said, ouch, it's a pity, just let it go. Alas, we should ask brother-in-law to compensate us this time. At this point, Xian slightly curled her red lips and was no longer excited. She took out her mobile phone, and muttered in a muffled voice, I will call him. Soon, the phone was connected. Zhang Han. What's wrong, are you upset? In the restaurant, Zhang Han and Meng Meng were having lunch, but he asked after putting down the chopsticks. I'm not happy. Xian said, pouting. If Zhang Han had seen her expression, he would have kissed her. Why are you unhappy? Is someone irritating you? Tell me, I will beat him. Zhang Han said with a chuckle. It's you, will you beat yourself? Ah. After hearing for a while, Zif could not bear to be with Xian, so she quickly got up and went out. I don't want to watch you showing your affection, I need to leave. Hearing what Xian said, Zhang Han was stunned and said in doubt, Me? It's you, I missed a golden opportunity because of you. What is it? Xian bent down and lay on the desk, putting her head on her arm. Then she said as she pouted, Do you know Han Yang? I told you last time. I see. It's me. Zhang Han seemed to think of something, so he burst into laughter. Should I tell her the truth directly? After thinking for a moment, Zhang Han denied his idea. She'd better discover it by herself. By then, her expression must be very cute, and she certainly will be moved. A woman, who is moved, will indeed be obedient. At that time, I can see her new postures, but I'm not aware of the postures she will make. Gradually, Zhang Han got the wrong idea. He gave me 10 songs, but I refused. Why did you refuse? The time is improper. He sent it at 21:21 and 21 seconds, which means that he loves me and wants to pursue me. Therefore, I refused. It's all your fault. Shouldn't I blame you? Well, ha, I'll compensate you when you come back at night. But what if it is a misunderstanding? I'll know his intention if Han Yang replies to my mail. Oh, it's past 12 o'clock. Have you had lunch yet? I lost my appetite. Would you like me to send food to you? No, I'm just kidding. The pumpkin porridge in the company restaurant also tastes good. Fei has gone to buy it, and we'll have lunch soon. After chatting for another 10 minutes, the two of them hung up. Then Zhang Han logged into the mailbox with his mobile phone and saw the email from Xian, so he started typing. In Xian's office, after Xian hung up the phone, Zif knocked on the door and walked in. She carried 2 cups of pumpkin porridge and a box, with several small buns and some pickles in it. Elder sister Yan, let's have lunch first, then wait for Han Yang's reply. If he says that it is just a misunderstanding, we can accept the songs. Zif had not given up. Well, let's wait. Xian nodded. When she was about to take a cup of pumpkin porridge, she suddenly saw a new message out of the corner of her eyes. Hey, he replied. Let's have a look, hurry up. Zif hastily put the food on the desk and got close to the computer, and then she read while looking at it. Hello, Beauty Xian, I'm Han Yang. I was somehow destined to send you the email at that time, so you don't have to think too much. I have a very beautiful lovely wife, who is like a fairy, as well as a cute daughter. These 10 songs include some of my yearning and sentiment. Since your voice is similar to the sound of nature, I think you will sing them very well. Wow, ha, it's cool, yeah, nice, great. These 10 songs are ours. Zif's eyes suddenly widened and she screamed. Seeing what Zif did, Xian grinned. This was indeed a piece of good news, and she was relieved at this time. Oh, by the way, Fei, do Han Yang's songs cost 200,000 yuan each? Xian asked. Yes, it seems to cost 200,000 yuan and the copyright will be fully licensed to the singer, Zif said. I see. Xian nodded and typed to reply the email. Thank you and I'll accept the songs. Should we talk about the terms of trading? After 20 seconds, Han Yang replied. Don't mention the money, it's too vulgar, just sing these songs properly. Doesn't he want the money? DM it. What happened? Zif said with great amazement. Is he for art? Xian was also a bit confused. But Xian felt relieved when she heard that he already had a wife and a kid. Besides, because Han Yang, as such a talent, actually complimented her on her voice, Xian was very delighted. However, she did not know that Han Yang's wife was herself, and his daughter was Meng. Then Xian stared at the screen for a few minutes with mixed feelings, and eventually typed 2 words with the keyboard. Thank you. Then she clicked to send it. At this moment, Xian was relieved and smiled heartily. She took out the mobile phone and told Zhang Han the good news through WeChat. Then she began to have lunch with Zif. She planned to continue to try another few songs after finishing lunch and taking a short break. After that, she needed to go to the recording studio to record the lossless audio sound music, and deal with the matters concerning with the copyright, the MV as well as the album, etc. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was just quiet in Meng Meng's leisure restaurant for a while. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Several fancy cars appeared on the street all of a sudden. The Hummers for military uses were like tigers and wolves. There was a total of about more than 20 cars. In the middle of them were 3 trucks. Zhao Feng was in the first military vehicle and chatted with Instructor Liu, who was really excited. In fact, he had just called Zhang Han. Zhang Han also knew that not only the treasures, but also Instructor Liu and his companions would come here. Zhang Han guessed that he could not wait to bring his men over as he had a short fuse. Chapter 329, The Dazzling Array of Treasures. After arriving at the restaurant, they directly pulled their cars over. "I am going to inform the boss," Zhao Feng said, and then he opened the door and got out of the car. "I'll go with you." Instructor Liu got out of the car and followed up in a hurry. The two of them stepped into the restaurant. At this point, Zhang Han was watching TV on the sofa on the first floor, with Meng Meng in his arms. "Boss, here we are." Instructor Liu approached him slowly and whispered with a fawning smile. "Well?" Zhang Han turned his head and glanced at him. After nodding, he continued to watch TV. Instructor Liu was about to speak. At this moment, Zhao Feng patted him on the shoulder and pouted to the table nearby, signaling him to sit at that table to wait for a while. Instructor Liu looked at the TV and realized that he needed to wait for Meng Meng to finishing watching the cartoon, so he sat quietly, waiting. During this leisure time, Zhao Feng and Instructor Liu also looked at the TV. Although they never watched cartoons, they found they were interesting at this moment, accompanied by the occasional laughter of Meng Meng. About a dozen minutes later, after the cartoon ended, Zhang Han stretched out his finger to touch Meng Meng's tender face, and then asked with a smile, "Shall we go to Mount New Moon?" "Great, let's go to play with Big Hai Hai and Little Hai Hai." Meng Meng nodded with satisfaction. "Let's go." Zhang Han smiled and picked up Meng Meng. He went out of the restaurant with Zhao Feng and Instructor Liu and locked the door. The next moment, he directly got into the Hummer for military uses in front of them without glancing at those heavenly treasures. With the gossip of passers-by, they drove away. The manager, Xiaomai and several other people of Sichuan spicy restaurant next to Zhang Han's restaurant shook their heads repeatedly as they saw what happened. The manager sighed with emotions and said, "The boss of the next door restaurant does have a horrible background. What a splendid show. I think the people in the Hummers are all from special forces. The boss of the next door restaurant was captured by them." A young man said in horror, "What serious crime did he commit? There are so many people coming here to catch him." "Hey!" The manager raised his head and patted the young man's head, and then he said angrily, "He was not captured but was invited. Do you know that? He was invited by them, you idiot." They arrived at the foot of Mount New Moon and pulled their cars over. "Boss, shall we select the heavenly treasures first?" After a pause, Instructor Liu said, "The 3 cars are all loaded with treasures and you can choose half of them, for I have to hand in the other half." On the way to Mount New Moon, Zhang Han did not inquire him about those heavenly treasures, so Instructor Liu hardly retained his composure when they reached the destination, because he had to hand in some of them. He, therefore, asked as Zhang Han was about to get out of the car. "Well?" Zhang Han nodded and said, "Let's check them first." For those heavenly treasures, Zhang Han knew that he could sort around 30% of them out. Moreover, this part was also of best quality among them. Although Instructor Li brought a large number of treasures, most of them could not be regarded as spirit treasures since they were just some rare herbs. After the back door of the first van opened, they found the carriage was like a showcase. In the center of it was a corridor, and cabinets, filled with various stuff, were on both sides. "Papa, what's inside?" Meng Meng, who was in Zhang Han's arms, said with curiosity. "There are some flowers and plants, and things like stones," Zhang Han answered. "Oh, can they be eaten?" Meng Meng pouted and glanced around. "They're inedible." After thinking for a while, Zhang Han said to Meng Meng seriously, "Meng Meng, only the dishes cooked by Papa are edible. You should tell Papa first if you want to eat something outside in the future. Some things are poisonous. Once you eat them, you will become ugly. Do you remember? Among the herbal spirit treasure, some of them were highly toxic. If he planted some on Mount New Moon later and Meng Meng accidentally ate them, not to mention whether he was able to detoxify them, Meng Meng would feel uncomfortable. Zhang Han absolutely did not want that to happen. Therefore, he should educate Meng Meng step by step in advance. It was undeniable that children's understanding of the whole world was deepening and they knew little about the world, so parents should teach them step by step. "Oh, I see, Papa. Meng Meng will be obedient. I don't want to become ugly." Meng Meng blinked her eyes and gave a clever response. The little princess was also eager to be a beauty. Zhang Han walked onto the carriage with Meng Meng in his arms. The shelves on both sides were separated into small squares with glass doors. "Boss, you can pick up whatever you like and leave me a few," Instructor Liu, who followed him, said with a smile. If he had not needed to hand some in for his superiors, he would have given them all to Zhang Han. It was worthwhile to give him several times of these treasures since he was a martial artist who could help his wolf-head team be promoted. "I won't take much." Zhang Han shook his head slightly and opened the lattices in succession. There were about 30 treasures. Soon, Zhang Han finished checking more than 20 of them. For those of poor quality, Zhang Han just glanced at them, while for some treasures that he could not judge their authenticity within a short period, he would open the doors and sniff them with his treasure-sniffing nose. After checking 25 lattices, Zhang Han only picked out 2 herbs. Besides, they were not first-stage spirit treasures. "Hey, this is not bad." Zhang Han opened a lattice with a yellow flower in it. This flower's diameter was 10 centimeters, and it had 9 petals. In addition, its shape was like a lotus. On sniffing it, Zhang Han was aware of its origin. Wooden core flower, as a first-stage spirit treasure, contained pure breath of life. It was like a panacea, which could combine with many other things to refine the elixirs. In the cultivation world, he had seen a 5th-stage wooden core flower before, but this one did not have high energy, which probably could be counted as a first-stage spirit treasure. However, it could be used with soft gold stone to refine flexible tendon pills. "I'll take this." After finished his words, he looked at the next one. As for Zhao Feng, he directly took out the small glass cabinet and put it aside, planning to bring it up the mountain. Zhang Han did not take a fancy to the next 4 treasures. The last one was a water spirit stone. He opened the lattice and held the water spirit stone in his hand. As he circulated his spiritual force and injected it into the stone, he felt a stream of water vapor. As a hydrophilic spirit treasure, water spirit stone possibly could help Zhang Han dive for more than 2 hours. "Papa, is this a toy?" Meng Meng looked at the water spirit stone, which was like a diamond. She liked it a little and wanted to play with it. "Yes." Zhang Han smiled and handed the water spirit stone to Meng Meng without hesitation. Meng Meng took it and played with it casually. As Instructor Liu saw what was happening, his mouth trembled, and he did not know what to say. That stone was really a heavenly treasure of relatively high quality. The boss actually gave it to Meng Meng, as her toy. "Hey, why there is no one send me a spirit treasure as a toy? I want such a papa." After finishing checking the treasures in the first truck, Zhang Han walked to the second one. This time, Zhang Han walked into the carriage first and opened the relatively large lattice. He wanted to figure out which level the blue serene bamboo at. It was a blazing red bamboo, with some filaments floating above it, like candlelight. In general, blue serene bamboos were blue. In terms of grade, the blue serene bamboos of low level were light blue. The higher its level was, the deeper its color was. However, this one obviously was a variant. Hiss. Zhang Han gently took a deep breath. Zhang Han could clearly smell the unique fragrance of spirit treasures. It was indeed a blue serene bamboo. It was of good quality. This blue serene bamboo was almost a second stage spirit treasure. The reason why it was red was because of uneven energy, so its effect was like a real blue serene bamboo at the first stage. However, it could be used as a nutrient for Yuan King Tree. Yuan King Tree, acknowledged as an advanced third stage spirit treasure, was approached the fourth stage. Even if the energy of this blue serene bamboo was uneven, it could nourish Yuan King trees. I'll take this. Zhang Han glanced at Zhao Feng and said, "Boss, you do have good taste." At this point, Instructor Liu said with admiration, "The numerical value of this heavenly treasure is the highest among this batch of treasures." Numerical value? Zhang Han asked curiously, "What is it?" "It's from the detector." Instructor Liu froze. Then he waved to his subordinates and said, "Fetch me the detector." About 2 minutes later, one of his men passed a small detector, like a compass to him. Instructor Liu put it in his head and saw the pointer inside spinning around constantly, but gradually it swung within a smaller and smaller range, pointing at the blue serene bamboo in the end. In the meantime, there was a number on the instrument panel. As Instructor Liu approached, the number was getting bigger and bigger. Instructor Liu said as he walked inside, "Look, Mr. Zhang, this is the detector for heavenly treasures. The numerical value ranges from 100 to 500. In fact, the value of each treasure here exceeds 100, while that red bamboo's value reaches 423. Oh, is it accurate?" Zhang Han stared at it for a while. "Yes, I don't know the principles, but I heard that it only can find those exposed heavenly treasures. Most treasures can't be detected." Instructor Liu replied, "What if the value exceeds 500? Zhao Feng could not help but ask. Mount New Moon was full of treasures. If it was detected, it would be discovered by many other people. But he was not worried about it, for two high powers were on the mountain. I haven't seen a treasure's value exceeding 500 before. If any, the detector will be hot, and the pointer will keep spinning." Instructor Liu shook his head. "It's interesting." Zhang Han smiled. This stuff was like a toy. Since it could be produced by human, it showed that technology was gradually improving. "I'll take this one, and that one." After finishing checking, Zhang Han pointed to several other herbs. After Zhao Feng took them, Zhang Han came to the third rock. He looked at the soft gold stone first. It was reddish-brown and the surface was very hard, but in fact, it was not a stone, but a plant. It could be used to refine the soft gluten pill with some spiritual herbs. In addition to the effect of making the skin stronger, it could also strengthen the tendons and enhance strength. Undoubtedly, this soft gold stone was a first-stage spirit treasure. The treasures in the third truck surprised Zhang Han. "It is really good." Zhang Han picked up a milky stuff, shaping like a bubble, which was as large as a football. "This thing is like a balloon, which is very slippery." We didn't make out what it was, but its value reaches 311, Instructor Liu said. "Over 300? Zhang Han chuckled, for he realized the detector was not inaccurate. In accordance with the standard of the detector in Instructor Liu's hand, the numerical value of this treasure was bound to exceed 600. Its name was Jinquan Fog, which was formed from the essence of mist cultivated by Jinquan stone in the place with extreme yang qi. Therefore, it shaped only under very harsh conditions. After it was formed, Jinquan Fog was like a hydrogen balloon, which would float in the sky. It was invisible and colorless and would not fall until 49 days. It dropped 1 meter every other day. In the end, it would float at a height of 10 meters, becoming a milky sphere. This was its final formation, which contained pure energy. The energy could enhance people's strength and build up their bodies. With it, Zhang Han did not need to refine the soft gluten pills because he was able to refine Jin Yang pills. It was Jin-Yang pills that invigorated health effectively, enhanced strength and accelerated speed. However, this Jinquan fog was just as big as a football. If it were much bigger, it would become a second-stage spirit treasure. Where did you find it? Zhang Han glanced at Instructor Liu and asked. On Fengling Island. Instructor Liu answered and asked then, what is it, a valuable stuff? Not really, Zhang Han responded. Jinquan fog was just a ramification, whose level was not high. More importantly, its existence illustrated that the land with extreme yang qi was not a legend. As was known to all, Jinquan stones at least were third-stage spirit treasures. In addition, there must be other spirit treasures on the land with extreme yang qi. However, Jinquan fog would keep drifting aimlessly. If he wanted to find the land with extreme yang qi, he needed to take painstaking effort. Zhang Han remembered that Jinquan fog existed not far from the land with extreme yang qi. This Jinquan fog, as big as a football, should appear within 500 kilometers around Fengling Island. Even so, it was still a long distance that it would take a long time to find it. Fengling Island. Now, he just needed to keep it in mind. In addition to these treasures, Zhang Han also took a part of the herbs. Great. The ingredients for refining Jin-Yang pills were all ready. Let's go up the mountain. Zhang Han looked at Zhao Feng and said, ask someone to bring a stove. Okay. Zhao Feng nodded and called Xuyong. Then Zhang Han took the lead in walking up the mountain, followed by Zhao Feng and Instructor Liu, with the treasures picked out by Zhang Han in their hands. When they reached the edge of the jungle, Instructor Liu said with amazement, hey, the pointer begins to move. Let me see. Zhao Feng got close to Instructor Liu to take a look, finding that the pointer inside the detector kept spinning. Moreover, the number was constantly changing, as if the detector was infected by a virus. Zhang Han also heard his scream though he walked ahead, and he only shook his head without saying anything. Therefore, they continued to go up the mountain. After crossing the jungle, they arrived at the lawn. At this moment, Dai and Little Hai had already run over. Meng Meng put the water spirit stone in Zhang Han's arms casually and begged Zhang Han to put her on the grass. Then she ran to Dai, asking it to throw her high. After playing for a while, Meng Meng sat on Dai's shoulder and they rushed to the pet area in the back hill. Zhang Han, Zhao Feng and Instructor Liu headed for the top of the mountain. Hey, how does it spin faster and faster? Instructor Liu said from time to time. Then, when they reached the top of the mountain and walked to the Thunder Yang tree, zoom, 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 the pointer of the detector in Instructor Liu's hand was spinning fast, and the number rose dramatically. Gradually, the detector began to buzz. Then, boom, the detector made a loud noise and started smoking. What the foo-kay, what happened? Did it blow up? Instructor Liu was suddenly dumbfounded. Chapter 330. Two high powers are promoted? Ha, ha, ha. Zhao Feng smiled and teased. Your detector seems to be ineffective. What junk? Instructor Liu glanced at the detector and muttered, the instrument always goes wrong, it's really of poor quality. Although it usually went wrong, he felt pity because it cost 2 million yuan. However, there was no way to make up for a loss. His superiors could not blame him since he did not even touch the detector. Instructor Liu had not expected that the reason why the detector exploded was that the level of the Thunder Yang tree in front of him was too high. He also had not expected that this mountain was covered by various spirit treasures. Once peasants smell grass, Thunder Yang tree, meatball grass, Yuan King tree, fragrant wood, the underground spirit water, and Yang King water were known by other martial artists. They would create much of a stir. It was acknowledged that martial artists were everywhere, but the lands with a variety of treasures were really rare. However, in Zhang Han's view, all these spirit treasures were just a beginning. Just like a web game, it required players to upgrade their territories constantly. Zhao Feng, Dai, Little Hai were like soldiers, who kept improving themselves. In the near future, Xian, Meng Meng, as well as his parents and relatives, were bound to be on the long way to cultivation. Of course, Zhang Han had planned for his own cultivation. First, he had to wait for the Yuan King tree to bear fruits, which were used to refine magical pellets and would help him be promoted to the foundation stage. Only then did he have some certain abilities to act, such as treasure hunt. However, a person remained mortal until he reached the innateness stage. Only those who were promoted to the innateness stage could embark on the road to cultivation. Boss. After putting the treasures in order, Instructor Liu stared at Zhang Han and asked, "When are we going to train?" "It is up to you." Zhang Han waved his hand. "Ah, well." Instructor Liu became excited, then he felt a little stunned and asked, "It's up to us?" "Ahem, boss. Don't you teach us? Xiaofeng is qualified to teach you." Zhang Han chuckled, then he looked at Zhao Feng and said, "Teach them Canyon gymnastics. Here are a few barrels of yanking water, you can take them and tell me when you run out of them." "Okay." Zhao Feng nodded and said with a smile while looking at Instructor Liu, "Carry 2 buckets of water per person and go to the beach where you have trained before." "Well, let's go." Instructor Liu grinned. Then he and Zhao Feng walked down the hill, with 4 buckets of water in their hands. The instant they reached the jungle, Instructor Liu said, "How disingenuous you are, Xiaofeng." "What? Why do you say so?" Zhao Feng was somewhat surprised. "Why don't tell me that you can teach us? We are not friends anymore." Instructor Liu said in anger. Zhao Feng said with a dumbfounded expression, "Without my master's permission, I can't teach you." Ha, I got it, the skills are indeed precious, I see." Instructor Liu laughed and said, "Did you use the gymnastics to defeat me last time?" "Canyon gymnastics, it can improve people's strength," Zhao Feng replied. "With the gymnastics, can everyone of Wolfhead team be promoted to the obvious strength stage?" Instructor Liu asked with excitement. "Yes, hiss." Instructor Liu gasped and said, "So, if the gymnastics is spread, aren't there a lot of people who can become martial artists? How's it possible?" Zhao Feng shook his head. "The water we were carrying is a heavenly treasure, only the people who drink it when they practice can improve their strength. Besides, the gymnastics is not just a weird posture, practitioners need to put forth their strength from different parts of their bodies. For instance, it only requires the calf strength when one stands on tiptoe and leans back. Simultaneously, it needs the strength from his chest muscles or other muscles. It's indeed complicated." He remembered that Zhang Han once said that the postures could be let out, for others did not know how to exert strength, and it was okay if the method was also spread, because others did not have the yanking water purified by the Thunder Yang tree. In addition, if they gained other heavenly treasures, now that they got valuable heavenly treasure and reached a certain stage, they did not need to practice in this way. Instructor Liu rushed to get into the car excitedly with Zhao Feng. After driving for 5 minutes, they eventually reached the beach. During this period, Zhao Feng called Xuyong to ask him to send the equipment they had used last time. Then he began to teach them Canyon gymnastics. At this point, all his teammates were standing in neatly with a serious expression, so was Instructor Liu. He was also like a student. There was no need for Zhao Feng to say anything more, he just asked them to stand at attention and dress backwards, and then he directly started teaching. The postures made them miserable after all, but the strength improved through training was fascinating. On Mount New Moon, after Zhao Feng and his teammates left, Zhang Han did not attach great importance to the spirit treasures on the ground but walked to the pet area on the back hill and played with Meng Meng for a while. When Meng Meng enjoyed herself, Zhang Han touched her little head and returned to the Thunder Yang tree. He directly picked up the box containing the blue serene bamboo and walked to the Yuan King tree a few meters away. The Yuan King tree was about 5 meters high, which was shaped like a brush, and there were only a few branches at the top. Before using the blue serene bamboo, Zhang Han put his hand on the Yuan King tree and injected his spiritual force into it, stimulating the activity of the Yuan King tree. About a minute later, Zhang Han directly took out the blue serene bamboo from the box, then swung his palm to insert the blue serene bamboo at the root of the Yuan King tree. Clatter. In an instant, the threads, like a flame, at the top of the blue serene bamboo, trembled constantly. It spent all its life on absorbing the energy of the plants around in its original location. Now, as it encountered the Yuan King tree at a higher level, it began to release its own energy. This was its lifetime mission. This was the blue serene bamboo. The threads on the blue serene bamboo shook faster and faster. Gradually, the ball of silk threads shrank and disappeared in the end. The color of its trunk gradually faded, changed from red to gray at a high speed. After 5 seconds, the color of the entire blue serene bamboo faded, and then it turned into ashes and disappeared. All its energy was absorbed by the Yuan King tree. Zhang Han looked up and saw that the several branches at the top of the Yuan King tree slowly moving upwards and changing constantly. Eventually, these branches became a flower bud. It won't take a long time. Zhang Han's eyes lit up. It seemed that the Yuan King tree would bear Yuan King fruits within 4 or 5 months. 90% of the energy of the Yuan King tree was in the branches at the top of the tree. With the time going by, the branches converged the energy they absorbed to turn into Yuan King fruits. After disposing of the blue serene bamboo, Zhang Han came to the pet area to accompany Meng Meng. About half an hour later, Ahu and Elder Meng came to the mountain. "Boss, everything is ready." The two of them put a furnace and a box on the ground. Then Ahu stood up and said, "Well." Zhang Han nodded slightly. "Brother Feng is training there. Let's go there to take a look." "Boss, do we have other things to do?" Elder Meng said with a smile. Just go." Zhang Han chuckled and said. They turned directly away, planning to go to the beach to be lookers on. As for Zhang Han, after sizing up the furnace, he shook his head slightly. It can be narrowly used. This was just an ordinary furnace, which would explode easily. However, by virtue of Zhang Han's power, he could narrowly refine pills with this furnace. Zhang Han had a good command of how to refine pills. With treasure-searching formulas, he got more and more treasures. In fact, he had arbitrarily squandered them at the beginning. It was acknowledged that failure was the mother of success, and it did make sense, for everyone could accumulate experience through failures. When it came to refining pills, Zhang Han had failed countless times. But through continuous efforts, Zhang Han had a 90% success rate when he refined the pills below 5th stage. It was extremely terrible, for he had to finish every step accurately. As for the pills below 3rd stage, it would be a 95% success rate now. Zhang Han shook his head again. Originally, since he had a 5 elements metaplasia tripod, he succeeded in refining the pills he knew well below 3rd stage. But now, although he was quite familiar with Jin-Yang pills, this furnace killed 5% success rate. Once the furnace exploded, these resources would be destroyed. Let's start. Zhang Han glanced at Meng Meng, who was in the pet area, and began to refine pills. At first, he took the box that Ahu had put on the ground before, in which were some jades. Although there was a little energy in jades, they could also be used to set formations. What Zhang Han wanted to set was soul guiding formation. That was to say, he made advantage of the energy from the Thunder Yang tree to refine pills through the formation. Zhang Han's hand reached into the box, and he took out a variety of jades. Then he threw them in all directions on the ground. In the meantime, as the spiritual power in Zhang Han's body kept surrounding the jades were cut into pieces, which fell in succession like meteors. After the 49th piece of jade fell, Zhang Han rushed to the Thunder Yang tree and put his hand on it to transmit energy. Zoom. A slight sound was heard. The formation was finished. Then Zhang Han poured a bowl of Yuan King water into the furnace. Light a fire. Zhang Han guided the energy, and the furnace was ignited the fire of energy. Clatter. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out from the lower side of the furnace. Zhang Han got a fright and quickly reduced the heat over and over again. As the heat decreased, the fire was finally under control. About a minute later, the yanking water in the furnace boiled and turned into vapor, floating inside. Without the barrier of energy, the vapor would disperse. When the last drop of yanking water turned into vapor, Zhang Han put Jinquan fog into it. Having been refined for more than 10 seconds, Jinquan fog seemed to be punctured like a balloon. Then the vapor vanished and merged with the vapor from yanking water. After that, Zhang Han put one or a few things at regular intervals. Gradually, all the spiritual treasures on the ground were put in. About an hour later, boom! A violent sound rang out, wandering above Mount New Moon. Meng Meng, who was playing on the back hill, turned to look over and muttered in confusion, "Did someone set off firecrackers? Whoa, 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 whoa." Dai's eyes widened, then it twisted its mouth and let out a cry. "What is the master doing? Ow!" Realizing that something went wrong there, Little Hai rushed over. "Big Hai, let's go there." Meng Meng stretched her small arms out to Dai. Dai picked Meng Meng up and put her on its shoulder, then it walked over slowly. At this point, under the Thunder Yang tree, when Zhang Han saw that the furnace was surrounded by smoke, his mouth trembled slightly. Did the furnace explode? After all, as an ordinary furnace, it was not durable. However, as the furnace exploded at that moment when the pill was about to be finished, he had no idea whether he succeeded in refining the Jin-Yang pill or not. Zhang Han stared at the furnace. He was not nervous. If the pill was finished, he would take Dai to abuse the deacon. If not, he would abuse the man himself. In short, the ending of the competition on Mount Yunding after 7 days was already doomed. However, it was a pity that these spirit treasures were wasted. After about 3 seconds, all the vapor drifted away. The whole furnace was blown apart, leaving only a chassis, and a crystal white pill was lying quietly on it. "The pill is finished." Zhang Han chuckled and reached out his hand to pick up the round pill of about 5 centimeters in diameter. Then he put it in his palm. "Papa, hug me." Meng Meng sat on Dai's shoulder several meters away from him and stretched out her small arms. Zhang Han took her with one hand and held her in his arms. "What is this, Papa?" Meng Meng looked at the pill in Zhang Han's hand with curiosity. "This is something for Dai," Zhang Han replied. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." Dai's eyes brightened in an instant. Is it delicious? Can I eat it?" Meng Meng stared at the small ball in Papa's hand. "It looks like a candy. Should I taste it?" Seeing that Meng Meng was somewhat greedy, Zhang Han shook his head with a smile and said, "Meng Meng, you can't eat it, or you will have a stomachache. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough, therefore, tonics sometimes would become poisons." Zhang Han did not intend to let Meng Meng have access to cultivation because she was not strong enough and there were few resources suitable for Meng Meng after all. "Will Big Hai have a stomachache after eating it?" Meng Meng asked curiously. Yes." Zhang Han nodded. "Well?" Dai was completely stunned since what Zhang Han said was a bolt from the blue. The next moment, it covered its own face and blocked its eyes with its left hand, as if to say, "You can't see me, I'm invisible." It also reached its right hand out and waved at Zhang Han. "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't want to eat it, I'll have a stomachache." Catching sight of Dai's expression, Little Hai curled its lips, as if it was tittering. Zhang Han did not know whether to laugh or cry. As a second-stage spirit treasure, this Jin-Yang pill would attract countless people once the news was spread. As for Dai, it really did not want to eat it. However, the Jin-Yang pill was the most suitable treasure for Dai now, so Zhang Han smiled and said, "It's beneficial to your strength, and you will become more powerful." "Well?" Dai put its left hand down, then it looked at Zhang Han and shouted as it pouted, "Whoa, whoa." While screaming, it patted its belly. Perhaps it said, "Won't I have a stomachache if I eat it?" "Not really, just eat it." Zhang Han directly threw the pill to Dai and said at the same time, You'll know what it feels like if you eat it. Whoa! Dai took the pill, then it threw it up and caught it in its mouth. It chewed twice. Is it insipid? Dai rolled its eyes, suddenly catching sight of Little Hai. Brothers should share good things together. Dai split the pill in half with its teeth. Ahem, pooh. It spat half of the pill in its hand. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Little Hai was ready to take it. Whoosh. Dai throw the pill up. Since it overexerted its strength, the pill was thrown more than 10 meters high. Little Hai kept staring at the pill as it fell, then it kicked and jumped to a height of 4 or 5 meters, catching the pill with its mouth. It did not bother with Dai's saliva but swallowed it without any hesitation. Ow! Little Hai barked to Dai twice. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Dai also swallowed the pill. Seeing what happened, Zhang Han felt warm and delighted. He increasingly liked the feeling of being a member of family. This pill was made for Dai, and Little Hai certainly could make use of it. However, other pills would be more suitable for Little Hai. As for Zhao Feng, Zhang Han did not take him into account. One of the reasons was that he had just been promoted to the inward strength stage, while another was that the grade of this pill was too low. As was known to all, every kind of pills could be divided into several grades. That was, low grade, middle grade, top grade, and highest grade. This Jin-Yang pill was only at a low grade. Some of the pills at low grade and middle grade had some energy that was difficult to be absorbed. The more a martial artist had, the more difficult the promotion would be. On the contrary, the beasts would absorb all the energy in their bodies when they condensed pills, to become even matches with elixir. This was the unique talent of the orc. At this moment, seeing Dai and Little Hai swallowed the pill, he waved to Little Hai. Little Hai moved and ran to Zhang Han, then it sat down and looked at Zhang Han as it stuck its big tongue out. This pill is specially designed for Dai. Once I gain other valuable materials, I will also refine pills for you. Zhang Han touched Little Hai's head. Ow, ow. Little Hai was so happy that it raised its head to bark several times. Papa, Meng Meng wants pills too. Do you forget Meng Meng? Meng Meng pouted and said, how is it possible? Zhang Han burst out laughing and kissed on Meng Meng's tender face, and then he said with a smile, I'll make more good things for Meng Meng in the future. I'll receive a lot of gifts. Meng Meng kissed on Zhang Han's cheek with great satisfaction. Then she blinked her big eyes, looked at Dai and Little Hai, and said in a childish tone, haven't you had a stomachache? Whoa? Dai scratched its head and spread its hands. I don't feel strange. But the next moment, hiss, a burning pain went through its body. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dai fell on the ground and rolled, so did Little Hai. It lay on the ground and kept kicking. Ouch, Big Hai, Little Hai, what's wrong with you? Meng Meng suddenly became anxious, and almost burst into tears. Two Hai powers turned over in a hurry and smiled at Meng Meng, enduring the pain. Seeing this, Meng Meng was relieved. However, the pain lasted for just a short period of time. After about 2 minutes, the pain dissipated, turning into numbness. After another 5 minutes, the numbness disappeared, and they felt fresh. Another 10 minutes passed. They did not feel fresh anymore but felt a force in their bodies. Bang, 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 bang. Dai also reached its fist out and punched itself on the chest. Little Hai also ran around at a high speed. Looking at their aura, Zhang Han was aware that they were all promoted. They should have been at the peak of inward strength stage before, but now, they were at the peak of the peak strength stage. That was, they were about to reach the early stage of chi refining, but they still needed some resources to help them break through. Zhang Han looked at two Hai powers, which jumped up and down, and shook his head with a chuckle. With these two little guys, Mount New Moon would be impregnable. Dai was equivalent to a heavy weapon, which was relatively powerful, while Little Hai was a killer. Although it did not have great strength, its sharp fangs would terrify the enemy in the battlefield. Zhang Han played with Meng Meng and did not return to the restaurant until 5 o'clock. However, When he walked down the mountain and saw the clean road, Zhang Han froze. He forgot that he had no car. So, he called Zhao Feng, asking him to arrange someone to pick them up. Everything went well here. While in Royal Entertainment Company of the North District, Maki was holding a department meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.